My husband, Charles, always says that anything I buy also belongs to him. If I don't agree, he says we should get divorced. Charles often takes things from me for no good reason. He even tries to give things I bought for my parents to his parents, just to look good. But that's not right. When I told him the truth about it, he looked shocked. Before I married Charles, my grandparents gave me a gift, real estate. I told them I would use it to help Charles and me in the future, but they warned me to keep it a secret. They didn't want Charles to know I had passive income and enough money to live on. Even though I felt sorry for Charles, I decided to follow my grandparents' advice. After my grandfather passed away, I was living with Charles when something happened. One day, I noticed that $10,000 was missing from the account I used to save money for living expenses. It was a joint account that Charles and I shared, mainly for the money he contributed to the house. I didn't remember taking that much money out, so it had to be Charles. When he came home, I asked him about it. "Hey, $10,000 is missing from our account. Do you know what happened?" I asked. He said, "I lent it to my mom. She was in some kind of trouble." I was upset. "And you didn't think to tell me about it?" Charles seemed unconcerned. "It's my money, we have savings, so it's fine, don't worry about it." I said, "If Lisa, his mom, was in trouble, I understand, but you should have told me. This account is for both of us." I didn't mind helping his mom, but withdrawing such a large amount without telling me bothered me. When I expressed my frustration, Charles got annoyed and quickly left for the bathroom. I felt bad about it. He hadn't acted like this when we first got married. He used to listen to me. Is this how things change in marriage? I wondered. A few days later, I went to my in-laws' house to drop off a package that was sent to our place by mistake. I planned to leave quickly, but they insisted I come in for tea. While I was there, I noticed expensive items, fancy cosmetics, designer clothes, and health products. They were gifts from my wonderful son, my mother-in-law said. I felt uncomfortable. Charles had told me he lent money to his mom because she was in trouble, but now I saw how they were spending it on luxurious items. As I sat there without smiling, my in-laws suddenly became serious and said, as if threatening me, "My son is so kind and thoughtful. What about you?" "Yes, as his wife. Are you treating him well?" "I heard that you're upset with him for lending me money," my mother-in-law added, making it clear that Charles had made himself out to be the victim. I finally understood. Charles had told his parents that he was being blamed for doing something good, which is why they were looking at me like I was the bad one. The more I thought about it, the more I grew tired of both my in-laws and Charles. I never imagined being treated this badly and neglected. Eventually, I started to seriously consider divorce. I thought that if I divorced Charles, I could go back to my parents' house and use my savings to rebuild it. My parents' house is over 30 years old and is too big for them now that my brother and I have moved out. They had some small modifications made to help them, but it's still too difficult for them to manage. A smaller, one-story house would be much better for them. I called my parents to tell them I was thinking about divorcing Charles and rebuilding their house. To my surprise, they weren't upset about the divorce. They were actually happy about the idea of rebuilding the house and told me to tell them more. "I'm so glad you're planning to rebuild it for us. Thank you. Even if we don't live there for long, it's fine because you're using your own savings to do it." I felt encouraged by their words and started planning the rebuilding process, taking it step by step. Just as I was waiting to hear back from the construction company, Charles confronted me. "How dare you use our savings to build a house without telling me?" he yelled, banging his fist on the table. He kept yelling, not caring about how I felt. "I'm building it for my parents to live in," I said calmly. "No, that's impossible. You used our shared money, so my parents should be able to live there," he argued. "Are you planning to squeeze 4 people into a small house?" I asked. He slammed the table again, screaming, "Just give me the house." I realized if I hadn't already told him about my passive income, he would have gotten even angrier when he found out. So, I decided to tell him the truth. "I have passive income from the real estate my grandparents gave me. I've been using that to save up for this project, so I didn't use any of our shared money," I explained. I felt guilty for breaking my promise to my grandparents, but Charles didn't calm down. He slammed the table harder, his anger growing. "What kind of wife hides her income like that? You protect your money while using mine," he shouted. Seeing his red face, I started to understand why my grandparents told me to keep my income a secret. Maybe they had already realized what kind of person Charles was. I'll take the house as alimony, he said, because the house you built as my wife belongs to me too. My husband, Charles, always insisted, I'm the head of the family, and if you don't do what I say, I'll divorce you. His words left me feeling nothing but frustration. How had I been living with him without realizing what kind of man he was? I had always planned to use my passive income only when we couldn't rely on Charles's earnings anymore. If I got sick or injured, I would use it to help us get by. I had intended to save it for our future together and tell him when the time came, but now, I no longer wanted to spend that money on him. Fine, go ahead, I said. I left the house, not wanting to be around Charles. I went to a business hotel for the night to cool off, planning to return the next day. When I came back, Charles was waiting for me with a smirk. He handed me divorce papers that were already filled out. You're lying about your passive income, right? You've been taking money from our shared savings, haven't you? He accused. I was confused. I had told him the truth, and I hadn't lied at all. I'm telling you the truth. I have passive income, I said. Charles just laughed and pushed the divorce papers at me. You can't live without me, he said, then added, you'll let me know when we can move in, okay? I'm going out for a drink. He patted me on the shoulder and left, acting as if nothing had changed. That was when I truly understood who Charles was. He had never respected me, and he never had. I packed my things, filled out the divorce papers, and left. I decided to stay with my parents for now and explain everything to them. They understood, and we agreed to stay together until the house was finished. The next day, I saw that my phone was filled with calls from Charles. I answered his call, hoping this would be the last time we'd talk. Hello? I answered. Hey, all your stuff is gone, he said impatiently. We're getting a divorce, so you can use the empty spaces however you want. I was confused. He was the one who wanted the divorce, so why was he panicking now? Huh? I said. I won't be coming back, so do what you want with the space, he said. I think he finally understood that I had passive income. After a moment of silence, he said in a sweet voice I'd never heard before, can you let my parents live in the new house? I don't mind living with your parents, just please let them have the house. I was stunned. I told you before, it's a small one-story house, I reminded him. Please, he begged, I want to surprise my parents with a house. His words shocked me. He was asking me to give his parents a house I had worked hard to build for my own parents, and call it a surprise? That was crazy. You don't even care about the savings, do you? I said. You never understood how much I struggled to make ends meet and save money. You just waste money and leave all the problems for others. Then you want to show off to your parents, acting like you did everything yourself. But I built it for my parents, I added, frustrated. Charles went quiet. I was fed up. It was clear that he was just trying to use me and take credit for everything. He had no right to take the house I built with my own savings and give it to his parents as if it were his gift. I couldn't let him take advantage of me anymore. The house was for my parents, not his. I would never let him use it to show off. I rejected Charles's request one last time, and he started yelling even louder. But husbands and wives are supposed to help each other. I'll tell them you built the house, please? We're not married anymore, I said. We're strangers now. I already filed for divorce. The day Charles handed me the divorce papers, I had already submitted them to the city office. He had wanted the divorce so badly, and I felt like I needed to leave him as soon as possible. I was already in the process of changing all the paperwork back to how it was before we were married. Charles sounded surprised. You really filed it? Why are you so surprised when you were the one who asked for the divorce? He even suggested, let's start over. Let's try again and be a good couple this time. How could he say that after everything? This was the man who spent our savings on his mother, threatened me with divorce, and made fun of me until the end. I didn't want to be with him anymore. No thanks. Please tell your parents I said goodbye, I said as I hung up the phone. The next day, I got more messages and voicemails from Charles, begging me to come back. He claimed he loved me, but I knew he was only after my money. To completely cut ties, I blocked all contact with him and his family. The house was finally rebuilt, and my parents and I moved into our new home. We were living comfortably, and I felt at peace. Later, I met a mutual friend who knew Charles, and I told her we were divorced. She shared what had happened to him and his family after we split. It turned out that Charles had quit his job suddenly, claiming he no longer needed to work because he had real estate. The company tried to reach him, but when he offered to withdraw his resignation, it was too late. His bosses were angry that he left without notice, and the company soon found out that his real estate wasn't his, but his wife's income. They refused to rehire him. Charles had made fun of my passive income, saying it was a lie, but then he tried to use it to his advantage, even showing off to his parents by offering them a house. He never thought about me or our future. Now, when I think of him, I feel nothing but relief. I heard that Charles moved back in with his parents, but they were apparently very hard on him. He's struggling to find a new job because of his resignation. He's getting exactly what he deserves. As for me, I'm living with my parents in the house I built. I have a job I've always wanted, and I'm enjoying life. I saved my passive income for Charles and our future, but now I'll use it to support the people who've always supported me.
The morning light filtered through stained glass, casting jewel-toned shadows across the empty church. I ran my finger along the last pew, checking for dust one final time. 6 a.m., and I'd already been here for an hour, making sure everything was perfect for Lisa's big day. Perfect. That word had defined our friendship for 20 years. Lisa was perfect, the kind of woman who could charm a room without trying, who never had a hair out of place, and I was perfectly happy being the one who made sure her life ran smoothly. The flowers for the altar are wrong, I muttered to myself, adjusting white roses that were already flawless. My phone buzzed with a text from the caterer. Crisis number 3 of the morning, and the sun had barely risen. That's what best friends are for, right? Especially when you're the maid of honor. Especially when the bride has been your other half since 4th grade, when she stood up to Becky Miller after she called me Mouse for being too quiet. I smiled at the memory as I fixed the satin ribbon on the flower arrangement. Lisa had always been my protector. I'd always been her rock. It worked. The heavy wooden door at the back of the church creaked open, and I froze. No one was supposed to be here yet. The bridal party wasn't arriving until 9, and Raphael's groomsmen were meeting at his family's estate. I'm telling you, it's all set. Lisa's voice echoed through the empty church. My first instinct was to call out, but something in her tone made me hesitate. I ducked behind a stone pillar instead. And you're sure he doesn't suspect anything? A man's voice, unfamiliar. Raphael, please, he's completely clueless. Thinks I'm his dream come true. Lisa laughed, but it wasn't her usual laugh. This one had edges, sharp enough to cut. And the prenup? Handled. My lawyer slipped in those amendments. Once we're married, I'll have access to the trust within 6 months. His family won't know what hit them. My heart hammered against my ribs so hard I was certain they could hear it. This couldn't be happening. Not Lisa. Not to Raphael, who looked at her like she hung the moon, who had spent weeks designing her engagement ring because nothing in the stores was special enough for her. What about Maria? The man asked. My blood went cold at the sound of my name. What about her? Lisa's voice was dismissive. Maria's harmless, loyal to a fault. She'd never believe I could do something like this, even if someone told her directly. The bouquet I'd been clutching fell from my hands. A single petal detached, drifting to the floor like a tear. She's been useful, though, Lisa continued. Knows everything about Raphael's family. Tells me every little detail, thinking she's helping with wedding planning. It's almost too easy. I pressed my hand against my mouth to keep from making a sound. Every conversation we'd had over the past year replayed in my mind. All those questions about Raphael's family business, his inheritance, his relationship with his parents. I'd answered everything, thinking I was helping my best friend connect with her future in-laws. I'd been her unwitting accomplice. And after? The man asked. A year, maybe 2, long enough to secure the money, then a heartbreaking divorce. Poor Lisa, whose husband became distant and cold. She laughed again. I've already started documenting our problems. A few strategic texts I've sent myself from his phone while he was sleeping. Some concerning emails I've drafted from his account. My stomach lurched. I'd held Lisa's hair back when she had food poisoning in college. I'd stayed up all night when her dad died. I'd been the one she called sobbing when she thought Raphael was going to break up with her 6 months ago. Had any of it been real? You're brilliant, you know that? The man's voice was closer now. I know, Lisa replied, and I could hear the smile in her voice. Let's get out of here before someone shows up. I need to play the nervous bride for a few more hours. Their footsteps retreated, the heavy door closing behind them. I slid down the pillar until I hit the floor, my bridesmaid dress pooling around me like spilled wine. What do you do when the person you trust most in the world turns out to be someone you never knew at all? My phone lit up with a text. Lisa, where are you? I'm heading to the bridal suite early. Need my best friend. I stared at those words, best friend, until they blurred. The church door opened again. I scrambled to my feet, wiping tears I hadn't realized were falling. Lisa stood in the doorway, radiant in casual clothes, her wedding dress waiting at the venue. Maria, what are you doing here so early? Her smile was the same one I'd known my entire life. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. She walked toward me, concern creasing her perfect brow. Are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. I heard you, I finally managed, my voice barely a whisper. Lisa's expression shifted so subtly most people would miss it, but I knew every micro-expression on that face, or I thought I did. Heard what? She asked, head tilting in confusion. Everything. The prenup, the plan, using me to get information. For one heartbeat, she maintained her innocent expression. Then it melted away, replaced by something cold and calculating I'd never seen before. Well, she said, straightening her shoulders, that's unfortunate timing. She stepped closer, close enough that I could smell her signature perfume, the one I'd helped her pick for the wedding. What are you going to do about it, Maria? She whispered. Who do you think they'll believe, the perfect bride or the jealous best friend? Her smile returned, but now I could see the predator behind it. This is only the beginning, she said softly, and you're either with me or you're in my way. Rain pounded against Sienna's apartment windows, matching the storm inside my head. 3 days since the wedding that never happened. 3 days since I'd watched Lisa's face transform from my best friend into a stranger. Drink this. Sienna pressed a mug of tea into my hands. The warmth seeped into my fingers, but the chill inside me remained. I keep thinking I dreamed it all, I said, staring into the amber liquid. That I'll wake up and Lisa will call me, laughing about some stupid thing Raphael did. Sienna sat beside me on her overstuffed couch, tucking her feet under her. You did the right thing, Maria. Telling Raphael before the ceremony. The right thing. Was it? The memory of Raphael's face when I pulled him aside in the vestry haunted me. The disbelief, then anger, then devastating realization when he confronted Lisa and saw the truth in her eyes. He thanked me yesterday, I said quietly, called to thank me for saving him from her. See, that's something. I shook my head. You don't understand. When he thanked me, I felt guilty, like I'd betrayed her. That's 20 years of friendship talking, not reason. Sienna reached for my hand. Lisa was using you, using him. She doesn't deserve your loyalty. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. She hasn't tried to contact you? Sienna asked. Not since she screamed that I'd ruined her life in front of the entire wedding party. I attempted a smile but failed. Hard to come back from that. The phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. Maybe you should answer, Sienna suggested. What if it's Raphael from a different phone? I picked up the phone. Hello? Silence then. Is this Maria? A man's voice. Familiar, but I couldn't place it. Who's asking? Someone who knows what Lisa was really planning. A pause. And what she's planning now. My heart stuttered. Who is this? A friend. Check your email in 5 minutes. The line went dead. Sienna leaned forward. What was that about? I don't know. I stared at my phone, then at my laptop sitting on her kitchen counter. But I think I'm about to find out. 5 minutes felt like 5 hours. When my email notification finally chimed, I nearly dropped my mug rushing to the computer. The message contained no text, just an attachment, an audio file. Should I asked Sienna. She nodded, eyes wide. But be careful. I clicked play, and Lisa's voice filled the room. I can't believe she ruined everything. Her words were slurred, angry. You underestimated her. The same male voice from the phone call. Maria, please. She's pathetic. Has been since we were kids. So desperate for friendship, she'd do anything I asked. Each word was a fresh cut. I'd spent 2 decades believing we were equals, sisters in everything but blood. Well, she wasn't pathetic enough to let you scam Raphael, the man said. This isn't over. Lisa's voice hardened. I've invested too much time. That trust fund is still within reach. How? The wedding's off. For now. But Raphael's not as strong as he thinks. A few weeks of the right kind of attention, some well-placed doubts about Maria's motives. And the other plan, with his father's company? Still on. That's why I need you to keep Caden in line. He gets nervous when things don't go exactly as planned. The recording ended. I sat frozen, staring at the screen. Maria? Sienna's voice seemed to come from far away. What other plan is she talking about? I shook my head slowly. I don't know, but it sounds like she's not done with Raphael. You have to warn him. With what? An anonymous recording I can't verify? I closed the laptop. He'll think I'm making it up, or worse, that I'm obsessed with his ex. Then what are you going to do? The question hung in the air between us. What could I do? Lisa had been my closest friend. I knew her habits, her tells, her weaknesses, but I'd clearly never known her heart. I need to find out what this other plan is, I said finally, and who Caden is. Maria. Sienna's voice held a warning. This isn't your responsibility. Isn't it? I introduced them. I vouched for her character for 2 years. The guilt that had been simmering inside me began to boil over. I told him he could trust her with his life. That doesn't make you responsible for her actions. Maybe not, but it makes me responsible for stopping her. I stood up, suddenly restless. I know things about Lisa that no one else does. If she's planning something else, I might be the only one who can figure it out. Sienna looked at me for a long moment. This isn't just about protecting Raphael, is it? I turned to the window, watching raindrops race down the glass. When I heard her in the church, talking about me like I was nothing, I've never felt so small, so stupid. My reflection stared back at me, hollow-eyed and pale. I need to know if anything was real. My phone buzzed again. A text this time, from the same unknown number. Lisa's meeting Caden tomorrow. 2 p.m., Harborview Hotel Bar. If you want to know more, be there. Sit at the back, don't let them see you. I showed Sienna the message. This could be dangerous, she said. What if it's a trap? What if it's not? I countered. What if this is my only chance to find out what she's really planning? Before Sienna could respond, another text came through. P.S. Check the attachments in your email again. There's more you need to see about Raphael's family inheritance. The clock is ticking. I looked up at Sienna, my decision already made. I'm going, I said. Tomorrow, I'm going to find out exactly who Lisa Sanderson really is. My hands trembled as I opened my laptop, the wedding planning spreadsheet still mocking me from the desktop. I'd organized everything, the flowers, the catering, the seating chart that took 3 weeks to perfect, all for a ceremony that ended in chaos and tears. I clicked on my email, heart pounding as I downloaded the new attachments. Legal documents filled my screen, dense with terminology I barely understood, but certain phrases jumped out at me. Olsen Family Trust, disbursement conditions, majority shareholder vote. I scrolled through page after page until I found it, a highlighted section about Raphael's inheritance. According to the document, he was set to receive controlling interest in his family's company on his 30th birthday, just 6 months away, or immediately upon his marriage, whichever came first. The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. Lisa hadn't just been after money. She'd been after power. My phone rang, startling me. Raphael's name flashed on the screen. Hey, I answered, trying to sound normal. Maria. His voice was rough, like he hadn't slept. Sorry to call so early. I glanced at the clock, 6:47 a.m. I hadn't slept either. It's fine. How are you holding up? A bitter laugh. About as well as you'd expect. Listen, I need to ask you something. I tensed. Okay. Did Lisa ever mention someone named Caden to you? My breath caught. Caden? No. Why? My father's security team found some concerning communications. Apparently, Lisa's been in contact with someone by that name for months. They think he might be connected to a competitor trying to gain access to our company. I closed my eyes, the confirmation of my fears washing over me. Raphael, there's something I need to tell you. I explained about the anonymous caller, the recording, the meeting at the harbor view. With each word, his breathing grew heavier. "I'm coming with you," he said when I finished. "No." The word came out sharper than I intended. "If Lisa sees you, she'll know something's wrong. I need to do this alone." It could be dangerous. "It's Lisa," I said, then realized that meant nothing anymore. The Lisa I knew didn't exist. "I'll be in a public place. I'll be careful." Silence stretched between us. "There's something else," I added. "I received documents about your family trust, about your inheritance." "What? How?" "The same anonymous source. Raphael, I think Lisa was after controlling interest in your family's company. The documents say you get it when you turn 30 or when you marry." His curse was soft but vehement. "That explains why she was pushing so hard to move the wedding date up." "I'm so sorry," I whispered. "I should have seen through her." "Don't." His voice softened. "You're the reason I'm not married to her right now. You saved me, Maria." The words should have comforted me. Instead, they felt like another weight on my shoulders. I hadn't saved him because I was smart or perceptive. I'd saved him by accident. "I'll call you after the meeting tomorrow," I promised. After hanging up, I stared at the wedding spreadsheets still open on my desktop. With sudden fury, I selected them all and hit delete. Watching them disappear felt like lancing a wound. Painful, but necessary. The Harborview Hotel bar was all gleaming wood and soft jazz, the kind of place where business deals happened over $18 cocktails. I arrived 30 minutes early, choosing a corner table partially hidden by a large potted plant. Perfect for observation, just as my anonymous guide had suggested. I ordered a club soda and tried to look like I belonged, though my heart was hammering so loud I was sure everyone could hear it. The bartender gave me a curious look as he delivered my drink. "Waiting for someone?" he asked. I nodded, not trusting my voice. "Lucky guy," he said with a wink before moving on to other customers. I almost laughed. There was nothing lucky about any of this. At 1:55, the door opened, and Lisa walked in. My stomach clenched at the sight of her. Immaculate as always in a fitted black dress, her hair swept into a perfect updo. She scanned the room with the confidence of someone who knew their worth down to the penny. I shrank further into my corner, grateful for the plant's broad leaves. Lisa took a seat at the bar, ordered something clear with lime, and checked her watch. At exactly 2, a man entered, tall with dark hair and the kind of looks that drew attention. He spotted Lisa immediately and joined her, leaning in to kiss her cheek with familiar ease. Caden. Had to be. I pulled out my phone and, pretending to check messages, snapped several photos of them together. Their body language screamed intimacy, the way she touched his arm, the way he leaned into her space. Still salvageable. I caught fragments of their conversation as a nearby table emptied. "Raphael is vulnerable right now." "His father's suspicious," Caden replied. "The security team—" Lisa laughed, the sound sending chills down my spine. It was her real laugh, the one I thought had been reserved for moments of genuine joy between us. "His father's old and paranoid, and Raphael—" She leaned closer to Caden. "Raphael still has a weakness." "What's that?" Lisa's smile was predatory. "Maria, he trusts her completely, and she's so predictably noble." My hands went cold. What was she implying? "You think you can still use her?" Caden sounded skeptical. "I think she'll be exactly where I need her to be, just like always." They lowered their voices again, heads close together over what looked like documents. I strained to hear more, but the ambient noise of the bar drowned them out. After what felt like hours, but was probably 20 minutes, they gathered their things. Lisa kissed Caden deeply before they parted ways. She toward the lobby, he toward the side exit. I waited until they were both gone before exhaling fully. My hands shook as I gathered my purse. Whatever Lisa was planning, it involved me somehow. And Raphael. As I stood to leave, my phone buzzed with a text from the unknown number. "Now you see. Check your email again. There's footage from Raphael's security system you need to watch. She's been in his house when he's not home. Multiple times." I froze, a new realization dawning. This wasn't just about stopping Lisa's plan anymore. This was about protecting myself from becoming her unwitting weapon. The security footage played on my laptop screen, crystal clear and damning. Lisa moving through Raphael's house with the confidence of someone who belonged there, opening drawers in his home office, photographing documents, planting what looked like a small listening device behind his desk. I watched her slip into his bedroom and emerge 10 minutes later, typing something on her phone with a satisfied smile. The timestamp showed this was just 3 weeks ago, when she'd told me she was at a bridal fitting. I closed the laptop, feeling sick. How many other lies had I swallowed without question? My phone rang. Raphael. Did you see it? His voice was tight with anger. Yes. I rubbed my temples, a headache forming. I'm so sorry, Raphael. Stop apologizing. This isn't your fault. He sighed heavily. Did you learn anything at the hotel? I told him about Lisa and Caden, their conversation, the way Lisa had mentioned using me somehow. I don't like this, Raphael said when I finished. She's planning something and you're in her crosshairs. I know, but that gives me an advantage. The idea had been forming since I left the hotel. She thinks I'm predictable, that she knows exactly how I'll react. Maria, I need to see what's in your house. Whatever she planted, whatever she was looking for, it might tell us what she's planning. Silence stretched between us. It's not safe, he finally said. Neither is doing nothing. I stood up, suddenly restless. She's not going to stop, Raphael. Not until she gets what she wants. Another pause. Fine, but not alone. I'll meet you there in an hour. Raphael's house was exactly what you'd expect from the heir to a tech fortune. Sleek, modern, and filled with gadgets that probably cost more than my car. But it wasn't cold. Family photos lined the hallway. A half-finished puzzle took up part of the dining table. Where should we start? I asked, feeling strangely nervous now that I was here. The office. That's where she spent the most time according to the footage. He led me down a hallway, his shoulders tense. The office was immaculate. Glass desk, ergonomic chair, bookshelves filled with business texts and family photos. It looked nothing like the chaotic creative space I'd imagined. You're neater than I expected, I said, trying to lighten the mood. Raphael's smile was tight. That's my housekeeper's doing, not mine. I moved to the desk, examining it carefully. The footage showed her planting something behind here. Raphael nodded, crouching down to run his fingers along the underside of the desk. Got it, he said after a moment, producing a small black device no bigger than a button. Is that a bug? Looks like it. He placed it on the desk, staring at it with disgust. Professional grade, not something you pick up at a spy shop. A chill ran through me. How would Lisa get something like that? Caden probably. Raphael's jaw tightened. My security team is looking into him. Seems he has connections to Vertex Technologies. Your father's competitor? Our biggest rival. They've been trying to acquire us for years. He ran a hand through his hair. If they got controlling interest, they could force a merger, I finished, the pieces clicking together. That's what Lisa was after, control of your shares. Raphael nodded grimly. Through marriage, I would have handed her everything. I continued searching the office while Raphael checked his computer for signs of tampering. In the third drawer, beneath a stack of folders, I found a small notebook. Raphael, I called, flipping it open. This isn't yours, is it? He looked up, frowning. No, what is it? Lisa's handwriting. My heart raced as I scanned the pages. Notes about Raphael's schedule, his passwords, details about his family's business holdings, and most disturbing, notes about me. Maria, too trusting. Use her connection to R's family. Already views her as sister. M knows about the Westlake project. Get details through casual conversation. M's loyalty, weakness, exploit as needed. Each word was a fresh betrayal. She'd been strategizing how to use me for months, maybe years. She was playing both of us, I whispered, handing the notebook to Raphael. He flipped through it, his expression darkening. There's more. He pointed to a page near the back. Plans for after the wedding, timetables, contact information for someone at Vertex. I leaned over his shoulder to read, our heads close together. The proximity made my heart skip in a way I didn't want to examine. She was thorough, I said, pulling back slightly. Too thorough. Raphael closed the notebook. This is evidence of corporate espionage. It's enough to... A noise from the front of the house cut him off, the sound of a key in the lock. We froze, staring at each other in alarm. Are you expecting someone? I whispered. He shook his head, reaching for his phone. Before he could call security, a familiar voice called out, Raphael, are you home? Lisa. Raphael motioned for me to stay quiet, pointing to a door that I assumed was a closet. I slipped inside just as Lisa's footsteps approached the office. Through a crack in the door, I watched her enter. She'd changed from the outfit she wore at the hotel, now dressed casually in jeans and a sweater I'd helped her pick out months ago. Lisa. Raphael's voice was controlled, betraying nothing. What are you doing here? She stepped closer, her expression a perfect mask of contrition. I came to apologize. What happened? It wasn't what you think. Really? What was it then? A mistake. I got cold feet, said things I didn't mean. Her voice broke convincingly. I love you, Raphael. I've always loved you. From my hiding place, I could see Raphael's face harden. But Lisa, focused on her performance, missed it. You still have your key, he said flatly. I was hoping that meant something. She moved closer, reaching for his hand. That some part of you still wants this to work. He stepped back, putting the desk between them. What I want is for you to leave. Lisa's expression shifted, the mask slipping for just a second. Her eyes darted to the desk, where the listening device and notebook lay in plain view. What's that? She asked, her voice suddenly sharp. Before Raphael could answer, I stepped out of the closet. Evidence, I said quietly. Lisa's head whipped toward me, her eyes widening in genuine shock before narrowing with calculation. Maria, of course you're here. Her laugh was brittle. Still trying to come between us? There is no us, Lisa, Raphael said, and we know about Caden, about Vertex, about all of it. For a moment, Lisa stood perfectly still, like a predator assessing its options. Then her posture changed, softened. You don't understand, she said, her eyes filling with tears that looked remarkably real. Caden threatened me. He said if I didn't help him, he'd hurt my family. I was trying to protect everyone. The performance was flawless. If I hadn't heard her at the hotel, seen the footage, read her notes, I might have believed her. Stop lying, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. It's over, Lisa. Her gaze locked with mine, and in that moment, the pretense vanished. What remained was cold, calculating fury. You have no idea what you've done, she said softly. This isn't over. Not by a long shot. She turned and walked out, her footsteps echoing through the house until the front door slammed. Raphael exhaled slowly. That could have gone better. I picked up the notebook, my hands trembling slightly. She knows we know. Whatever she's planning next. Will be worse, he finished grimly. We need to be ready. The clinking of silverware against fine china felt deafening in the tense silence of the Olsen family dining room. I sat beside Raphael, acutely aware I was wearing the only dress I owned that was remotely appropriate for dinner with one of the city's wealthiest families. Raphael's father, Edward, cut his steak with surgical precision, his expression unreadable. His mother, Vivian, smiled too brightly, asking me questions about my job that I answered on autopilot. This wasn't how I'd imagined meeting Raphael's parents. Not as the woman who'd exposed their almost daughter-in-law as a corporate spy. So, Maria, Edward finally addressed me directly. Raphael tells me you've known Lisa for most of your life. I set down my fork. Yes, since we were 9. And you never suspected anything unusual about her intentions? The question hung in the air like a guillotine blade. Dad, Raphael warned. It's a fair question, Edward insisted. If this woman was plotting corporate espionage for years, there must have been signs. Heat crept up my neck. There were probably dozens of signs. I missed them all. Because you trusted her, Vivian said gently. Because I wanted to believe the best of her, I corrected. There's a difference. Edward studied me, his gaze clinical. And now? What do you want from all this? I don't want anything, I said, meeting his eyes. I'm trying to help clean up a mess I unknowingly helped create. By attending a family dinner, his skepticism was palpable. By discussing our next steps, Raphael interjected. Maria found Lisa's notebook. She overheard her with Caden. She's been crucial to understanding what we're up against. Edward's expression softened marginally. Yes, the notebook. My security team was quite interested in that. He turned back to me. You realize this situation is escalated beyond a personal betrayal? Vertex Technologies has been trying to acquire our company for years. With the information Lisa gathered, they could potentially force a hostile takeover. My stomach tightened. I understand. Do you? Edward leaned forward. Because my son seems to trust you implicitly, and given recent events, I find myself questioning his judgment. Dad, that's enough, Raphael snapped. No, it's okay, I said, placing my hand briefly on Raphael's arm. Your father's concern is valid. I turned back to Edward. I've spent the past week questioning every interaction I've ever had with Lisa, every confidence I shared, every time I vouched for her character. I understand your skepticism better than anyone. A heavy silence fell over the table. Well, Vivian said brightly, who's ready for dessert? Later, Raphael and I stood on the terrace overlooking the manicured garden, the night air cool against my skin. I'm sorry about my father, he said, leaning against the stone balustrade. Don't be. He's protecting his family and his company. I wrapped my arms around myself. I'd be suspicious of me too. Raphael turned to face me. But I'm not. Suspicious, I mean. Maybe you should be. The words slipped out before I could stop them. I didn't see through Lisa for 20 years, Raphael. What does that say about my judgment? It says you're loyal, that you see the best in people. He stepped closer. Those aren't flaws, Maria. Something in his voice made me look up. The intensity in his eyes caught me off guard. The board meeting is tomorrow, he said, changing the subject. My father wants to discuss countermeasures against Vertex. What can I do to help? Actually, there's someone I want you to meet. My father's lawyer, Zechariah. He's been looking into Lisa's background, and he has questions only you might be able to answer. I nodded, though anxiety fluttered in my chest. Of course. Raphael's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, frowning. It's Zechariah now, actually. He says it's urgent. He answered, putting the call on speaker. Raphael, a deep voice said without preamble. We have a situation. Lisa just filed a restraining order against Maria. What? I gasped. She's claiming harassment, stalking, and threatening behavior. Says Maria has been obsessed with you for years and orchestrated this whole situation out of jealousy. My knees weakened. I gripped the balustrade for support. That's absurd, Raphael said. We have evidence. Evidence you obtained illegally, according to her filing. Zechariah cut in. She claims Maria broke into your house and planted the notebook. I was with Maria the entire time, Raphael protested, which she's spinning as proof of your affair. She's painting herself as the victim of a conspiracy between you two. The world seemed to tilt beneath my feet. This can't be happening. It gets worse, Zechariah continued. She's given an interview to the Business Journal. It publishes tomorrow morning, right before the board meeting. Raphael cursed under his breath. Can we stop it? Not without making ourselves look guilty, but there's something else you should know. Zechariah paused. The reporter she spoke to. He's received photographs of Maria entering and leaving your house multiple times this week, and one of you two on the terrace right now. I spun around, scanning the darkness beyond the garden. Nothing but shadows. We're being watched, I whispered. She's setting the stage, Zechariah said grimly, making it look like Maria manipulated you, that she's been the puppet master all along. The realization hit me like a physical blow. Lisa wasn't just trying to salvage her plan. She was making me the scapegoat, using my friendship with Raphael to discredit us both. What do we do? I asked, my voice small. We need to meet tonight, Zechariah said. I have an idea, but it's unorthodox. Anything, Raphael replied. Name the place. My office. 1 hour. And Raphael, come separately. No more fuel for her fire. The call ended, leaving us in stunned silence. She's always been good at turning things around, I said numbly, making herself the victim when she's caught. Raphael reached for my hand, squeezing it gently. We'll fight this, Maria. Together. I looked down at our joined hands, then back at the shadowy garden where someone might still be watching, documenting this moment of connection as evidence of some fictional conspiracy. That's exactly what she wants, I said, pulling my hand away. For us to look like we're in this together. Like we planned it. So what? We know the truth. The truth might not be enough. I stepped back, creating distance between us. Not against a story as compelling as the one she's creating. In the soft terrace lighting, I saw something shift in Raphael's eyes, determination hardening into resolve. Then we'll need to create a better one, he said, and I think I know how. Fallen leaves crunched beneath my feet as I walked through the park, each step matching the rhythm of my racing thoughts. The morning air was crisp, carrying the first hint of winter. I pulled my jacket tighter, less against the cold and more against the growing sense of isolation. 3 days had passed since the meeting with Zechariah. 3 days of careful planning, of staying away from Raphael, of playing the part Lisa had unwittingly assigned me, the scorned friend, retreating in shame. My phone buzzed. Sienna. Have you seen it? She asked when I answered. Seen what? The interview. It's everywhere, Maria. My stomach dropped. How bad? Bad. Her voice softened. Where are you? I'll come to you. The park near my apartment, the bench by the pond. 20 minutes later, Sienna appeared, carrying 2 coffee cups and a tablet. She handed me a coffee and sat beside me, her expression grim. You need to see this, she said, unlocking the tablet. Lisa's face filled the screen, her eyes slightly red as if she'd been crying. The headline made my blood run cold. Jilted bride speaks out, my best friend betrayed me for my fiancé. I forced myself to read, each word more twisted than the last. Lisa described our friendship as one-sided. Me, always jealous of her success, her relationships. She painted Raphael as an innocent caught between 2 manipulative women. And most damning, she suggested I'd been feeding her false information about Raphael's family business to sabotage her relationship. She's turned everything upside down, I whispered. Keep reading, Sienna urged. Near the end, Lisa expressed concern for Raphael, suggesting he was being manipulated by me and his father's paranoid fears about corporate espionage. She even managed to make her relationship with Caden sound innocent, just a friend helping her navigate her concerns about the Olsen family's business practices. The comments are worse, Sienna said softly. I scrolled down, each comment like a knife. People who didn't know me, didn't know any of us, confidently declaring me the villain, a homewrecker, a jealous, obsessive friend. I can't believe people are buying this, I said, handing the tablet back. People love a scandal, and Lisa's story hits all the right notes. Betrayal, jealousy, corporate intrigue. Sienna squeezed my hand. But it doesn't matter what they think. What matters is the truth. Does it? I stared at the pond where ducks glided across the surface, unconcerned with human drama. Lisa's winning. Again, just like she always has. This isn't like you, Maria. You don't give up. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe I should have given up on Lisa years ago, the first time I realized our friendship wasn't equal. I took a sip of coffee, welcoming the bitter warmth. Did I ever tell you about my 16th birthday? Sienna shook her head. Lisa threw me a surprise party, invited everyone from school, decorated my parents' basement. It was perfect. I smiled at the memory. Except halfway through, I overheard her telling someone she only did it because her crush would be impressed by her generosity. That's awful. The thing is, I convinced myself it didn't matter, that her reasons weren't important, only the result. I laughed hollowly. I've been doing that our entire friendship, making excuses for her, ignoring the signs. And now? Now I'm done making excuses. I stood up, suddenly restless. Zechariah has a plan. It's risky, but it might be our only chance to expose Lisa and Caden before the Olsen Company board votes tomorrow. What kind of plan? Before I could answer, my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? I answered cautiously. Maria. A male voice, vaguely familiar. It's Caden. My heart stuttered. I put the phone on speaker so Sienna could hear. What do you want? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. To meet, just you and me. Why would I do that? Because I have information about Lisa that you need. He paused. And because I'm not as loyal to her as she thinks. I exchanged a glance with Sienna, who mouthed trap silently. How do I know this isn't a setup? I demanded. You don't. His voice was calm. But ask yourself this. Who has more to lose if the truth comes out? You Or Lisa. I thought of Zechariah's plan. Complicated, dependent on timing and evidence we weren't sure existed. When and where? I finally asked. 1 hour. The boathouse at Lakeside Park. That's isolated, I protested. It's public enough to be safe, private enough to talk freely. He sounded impatient. 1 hour, Maria. Come alone or don't come at all. The call ended. You can't seriously be considering this, Sienna said. What choice do I have? Zechariah's plan might not work. This could be our backup. Or it could be Lisa's trap to make you look even worse. Sienna grabbed my arm. Think about it. You meet Caden in secret, someone takes pictures. Suddenly you're conspiring with Lisa's innocent friend against her. She was right. It was exactly the kind of setup Lisa would orchestrate. Then what do? I asked, frustration building. Wait for Zechariah's plan and hope it works? Hope the board believes Raphael over Lisa? Hope the truth magically comes out? No. Sienna's expression hardened with resolve. We spring their trap, but on our terms. The boathouse stood at the edge of the lake, its weathered wood blending with the autumn landscape. I approached slowly, every sense on high alert. According to our hastily revised plan, Sienna was positioned nearby with her camera, ready to document whatever happened. Caden was waiting inside, leaning against a stack of canoes. He straightened when he saw me. You came, he said, sounding genuinely surprised. I want to know what you know about Lisa. He studied me for a moment. You're nothing like she described. And how did she describe me? Naive, easily manipulated, blindly loyal. He shrugged. But you figured her out. That took courage. It took me 20 years too long, I countered. What do you want, Caden? To make a deal. He stepped closer. Lisa's plan is falling apart. Vertex is getting nervous. They're looking for someone to blame when this all goes south. And you don't want it to be you. He smiled thinly. Smart girl. What kind of deal? Information for immunity. I tell you everything. About Lisa, about Vertex's plans, about who's really pulling the strings, and you make sure the Olsons don't come after me. I laughed incredulously. Why would they agree to that? Because what I know could save their company. His expression turned serious. Lisa isn't working alone, Maria. She never was. Before I could respond, the boathouse door opened. Lisa stood in the entrance, her expression a mixture of triumph and fury. I knew you couldn't be trusted, she said to Caden. Then to me, and you, always so predictable. My heart sank as I realized Sienna had been right. It was a trap after all. You set this up, I said to Caden. He at least had the decency to look apologetic. Nothing personal. Lisa stepped into the boathouse, closing the door behind her. Did you really think it would be this easy? That Caden would betray me for you? Actually, I said, finding my voice, I was counting on it. Her smile faltered. What? You're not the only one who can set a trap, Lisa. I pulled out my phone, showing her the active recording. And you're not the only one with friends in unexpected places. On cue, the boathouse door opened again. Zechariah stepped in, followed by Raphael and 2 men I didn't recognize. Lisa Sanderson, Zechariah said formally, I believe you've just implicated yourself in corporate espionage. Again. Lisa's face drained of color as she realized what had happened. Her eyes locked with mine, cold with hatred. This isn't over, she whispered. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt something like certainty. You're right, I agreed. It's just beginning. The private chapel on the Olson estate felt charged with expectation, sunlight streaming through stained glass windows and casting jewel-toned patterns across the stone floor. I paced the length of the small sanctuary, my footsteps echoing in the silence. In less than an hour, everything would change. My phone buzzed with a text from Sienna. Are you ready for this? Was I? The plan we'd crafted with Zechariah was risky. If it failed, Lisa would walk away unscathed, possibly with enough leverage to still damage the Olsons. If it succeeded, I wasn't sure I was prepared for that either. The chapel door opened and Raphael entered. He'd been distant since the boathouse confrontation 2 days ago. Professional, focused on the plan, but something had shifted between us. Everything set. he said, stopping a careful distance away. Zechariah has the documents ready. My father's board members are arriving now. I nodded, unable to find words. You don't have to do this, Raphael added softly. We have enough evidence from the boathouse recording. You could walk away. No. I met his eyes. I need to see this through. For 20 years, Lisa made me believe I was lucky to have her friendship, that I was the taker, and she was the giver. My voice strengthened. I need to be there when she finally faces the truth. Raphael studied me for a long moment. You're not who I thought you were when we first met. Is that good or bad? Good. A small smile touched his lips. Definitely good. Before I could respond, the door opened again. Zechariah entered, his expression grave. It's time, he said. Lisa's arrived with her lawyer. My stomach tightened. This was it. Remember, Zechariah continued, let me lead the conversation. Say nothing until I give you the signal. I took a deep breath and followed them out of the chapel, across the manicured grounds to the main house. With each step, memories of Lisa flooded my mind. Childhood secrets shared, teenage heartbreaks soothed, adult milestones celebrated. 20 years of friendship built on a foundation I now realized had always been cracked. The Olsen family's formal sitting room had been transformed into something resembling a courtroom. Edward sat at the head of a long table, flanked by stern-faced board members. Lisa was already seated on one side, a sharp-suited lawyer beside her. She didn't look up when we entered. Zechariah directed me to a seat directly across from Lisa. As I sat down, she finally raised her eyes to mine. No remorse, no shame, only cold calculation. Thank you all for coming, Edward began. We're here to address serious allegations regarding corporate espionage targeting Olsen Technologies. Lisa's lawyer leaned forward. My client has made it clear that these allegations are false, manufactured by Ms. Reyes out of jealousy and obsession. That's why we've gathered evidence beyond Ms. Reyes's testimony, Zechariah replied smoothly. He placed a folder on the table. Financial records showing payments from Vertex Technologies to an offshore account linked to Ms. Sanderson. Communications between Ms. Sanderson and Vertex executives dating back 18 months. And most damning, he paused for effect, testimony from Caden Watson, detailing the entire operation. Lisa's composure cracked. Caden would never. Mr. Watson reached an immunity agreement with federal investigators yesterday, Zechariah interrupted, in exchange for his full cooperation. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. This wasn't just about corporate espionage anymore. This was federal territory. Lisa's lawyer whispered urgently in her ear. Her face paled. Before we proceed, Zechariah continued, Ms. Reyes has requested an opportunity to address Ms. Sanderson directly. This was my cue, the moment we'd planned for. I stood slowly, my legs steadier than I expected. Lisa, I began, my voice clear in the hushed room. For 20 years, I believed you were my best friend. I trusted you with everything. My secrets, my insecurities, my loyalty. Lisa's expression hardened. Save the dramatics, Maria. We both know this is about Raphael. No, I said firmly. This has never been about Raphael. This is about you and me, about the fact that you used our friendship as a weapon, that you calculated every moment of connection between us. You have no idea what you're talking about. Don't I? I reached into my bag and pulled out a small worn journal. Lisa's eyes widened in recognition. Your diary from senior year. The one you lost at my house. The one where you wrote about befriending the quiet, desperate girl because her father worked for the university admissions office. Murmurs rippled through the room. Lisa's lawyer placed a restraining hand on her arm. You kept that all these years? Lisa asked, her voice barely audible. I found it when I was cleaning out my childhood bedroom last week. I was going to return it to you. I laughed softly. I thought it might have sentimental value. It doesn't prove anything, she said, but uncertainty had crept into her voice. Maybe not legally, but it proves something to me. I opened the journal to a marked page. You wrote, Maria is so pathetically grateful for attention that she'll do anything I ask. It's almost too easy. The words hung in the air between us. For the first time since this began, I saw genuine emotion in Lisa's eyes. Not remorse, but fear. Fear that her carefully constructed image was crumbling. "We were teenagers," she said dismissively. "Everyone's cruel at that age. But most people grow out of it." I closed the journal. "You just got better at hiding it." I turned to address the room. "I'm not here for revenge. I'm here because Lisa Sanderson has spent her entire adult life manipulating people for personal gain. She targeted Raphael and his family with calculation and precision. And she used our friendship, a friendship I believed was real, to do it." Lisa stood abruptly. "This is absurd. You have no proof of anything except that I wrote some mean things as a teenager." "Actually," Zechariah interjected, "we have this." He pressed a button on a remote, and a recording filled the room. Lisa's voice, crystal clear. "You set this up, nothing personal." Then, my voice. "You're not the only one who can set a trap, Lisa." Lisa's face drained of color as the boathouse conversation played out. When it ended, the silence in the room was deafening. "Ms. Sanderson," Edward said finally, "I believe this meeting is over." Lisa's lawyer gathered their papers, whispering urgently in her ear. But Lisa wasn't listening. She was staring at me with a mixture of hatred and something else, something that looked almost like respect. As she stood to leave, she paused beside my chair. "You know what's funny?" she said quietly. "After all these years, I never thought you had it in you." I met her gaze steadily. "That was always your mistake." For a fleeting moment, I glimpsed the girl I'd thought was my friend, vulnerable, human. Then her mask slipped back into place. "This isn't over," she whispered. "Yes, Lisa," I replied, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. "It is." Steam rose from the tea in my hands as I sat on my apartment balcony, watching the city wake up. The morning air carried the scent of rain and possibility. For the first time in weeks, I'd slept through the night without dreaming of Lisa or betrayal or the look in her eyes when everything fell apart. My phone buzzed with a news alert. Vertex Technologies CEO resigns amid corporate espionage scandal. I smiled faintly. The dominoes were still falling. A knock at my door pulled me from my thoughts. I wasn't expecting anyone, especially not at 7 a.m. Through the peephole, I saw a delivery person holding a small package. "Maria Reyes?" she asked when I opened the door. "That's me. Sign here, please." The package was lightweight, unmarked except for my name and address. No return information. I set it on my kitchen counter, studying it with suspicion. After everything that had happened, paranoia felt justified. Finally, curiosity won. I carefully opened the package to find a thumb drive and a handwritten note. "You deserve to know everything. See, Caden." My hands trembled slightly as I plugged the drive into my laptop. It contained a single video file. I hesitated, then clicked play. Lisa appeared on screen, sitting in what looked like a hotel room. She was speaking to someone off camera. "The Maria angle is perfect," she was saying, taking a sip from a wine glass. "She trusts me completely. Through her, I can get close to Raphael without raising suspicions." "And you're sure she doesn't suspect anything?" A male voice. Caden's. Lisa laughed. "Maria, please. She's spent her whole life in my shadow, grateful for whatever scraps of attention I throw her way." I flinched at the casual cruelty, but kept watching. "What about your history?" Caden asked. "You've known each other since childhood. There must be some genuine connection." Lisa's expression shifted, something almost vulnerable crossing her face. "We were friends once, real friends, before I understood how the world works." "When did that change?" She was quiet for a moment. "Senior year. My father lost everything in that investment scheme. Suddenly we were broke and all my so-called friends disappeared. Except Maria." Lisa's voice hardened. "That's when I realized the truth. People are assets or obstacles. Maria was useful, so I kept her close. And now? Now she's the key to everything." Lisa smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "The perfect pawn who doesn't even know she's on the board." The video ended. I sat motionless, processing what I'd just seen. Even knowing everything Lisa had done, hearing her speak about me with such calculated detachment still hurt. But something else nagged at me. Something in her expression when she mentioned our past friendship. A flicker of regret? My doorbell rang again. This time, Raphael stood in the hallway, holding coffee in a paper bag that smelled like cinnamon. "Peace offering," he said, holding them up. "I thought you might need breakfast after yesterday." I let him in, grateful for the distraction. "Have you seen the news?" "About Vertex? Yes. My father's ecstatic." He set the coffee on my counter, noticing my laptop. "What's that?" "A gift from Caden. Apparently he's still trying to secure his immunity deal." Raphael's expression darkened. "More evidence against Lisa?" "In a way." I closed the laptop. "It doesn't matter anymore, doesn't it?" He studied me carefully. "You still care about her?" "I care about who I thought she was." I took a sip of the coffee he'd brought. "There's a difference." We moved to the balcony. The city spread before us like a promise. For a while, we sat in comfortable silence. "What happens now?" I finally asked. "Legally, Lisa's facing federal charges. Caden too, probably, despite his cooperation." Raphael shrugged. "My family's company is safe. The board voted unanimously to implement new security protocols." "That's not what I meant." He smiled slightly. "I know." Another silence stretched between us, filled with unspoken possibilities. "I'm selling my wedding planning business," I said suddenly. Raphael looked surprised. "Why? You're good at it." "I was good at it because I lived for other people's happiness, making their dreams come true because I didn't have any of my own." I turned to face him. "I don't want to do that anymore." "What do you want, Maria?" The question hung in the air between us. 6 weeks ago, I wouldn't have had an answer. My entire identity had been wrapped up in being Lisa's loyal friend, in being needed, in being useful. "I want to find out who I am without Lisa's shadow over me," I said finally. "I want to trust my own judgment again. I hesitated, then continued more firmly. "I want to build connections that are real, not convenient, not useful, just real." Raphael nodded slowly. "That sounds like a good place to start." My phone chimed with a text. I expected Sienna or Zechariah, but the number was unfamiliar. I meant what I said. It's not over. But maybe not in the way you think. When you're ready to hear the whole truth, not just Caden's version, you know where to find me. L. I stared at the message, a complex emotion rising in my chest. Not quite anger, not quite curiosity. Something in between. "Lisa?" Raphael asked, reading my expression. "Yes." "What does she want?" I put the phone down without replying. "It doesn't matter right now." And for the first time, I meant it. Whatever game Lisa was still playing, whatever truth she claimed to have, it could wait. I had spent 20 years revolving around her son. Now it was time to find my own light. "You know what the strangest part is?" I said, watching a pair of birds soar between buildings. "In trying to destroy me, Lisa accidentally set me free." Raphael's hand found mine on the balcony railing, warm and steady. Not a promise, not yet, but a possibility. And for now, that was enough.
The keys to my new house felt heavy in my pocket as I stared at my bank account balance. Exactly 742.16. Just yesterday, there had been over $50,000 sitting there, my entire college fund. My hands trembled as I dialed my mother's number. "Mom, what happened to my college fund?" My voice cracked despite my best efforts to stay calm. "Oh, honey, about that." She paused, and I could practically see her nervously twirling her hair. "Your brother needed the money for his new business venture. You know how important this is for the family." I'm Elisa, and this was the moment I realized just how little I meant to my own family. The front door slammed, and my brother Harley's booming voice filled our house. "Hey sis, come check out what your college fund bought." My feet carried me outside before my brain could process what was happening. There, taking up half our driveway, sat a gleaming white boat. Not just any boat, a 35-foot luxury cruiser that probably cost more than most people's yearly salary. "Isn't she beautiful?" Harley ran his hand along the hull, grinning like a kid on Christmas morning. "Mom and I figured since you're so good with your money, you can just work your way through college. This investment will pay off way better than some boring degree." You took my money without asking? I managed to choke out. Mom agreed it was the right move, he shrugged. We're expanding the family entertainment business. This boat will be perfect for luxury tours. My mother appeared beside me, placing her hand on my shoulder. I shrugged it off. Sweetie, your brother has such a good head for business. This is what's best for everyone. Everyone except me, you mean? I stepped back, watching their faces. Neither looked guilty, just mildly annoyed at my reaction. Don't be dramatic, Harley rolled his eyes. You can be part of the business too. Maybe work as a tour guide or something. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from my real estate agent confirming the closing date for the house I'd secretly bought. The house my family had been eyeing for months as the perfect location for their new restaurant. I need some air, I muttered, walking away as they continued fawning over the boat. I drove to my best friend Philip's house, barely seeing the road through my tears. He opened the door before I could knock, took one look at my face, and pulled me into a hug. They did it, didn't they? He asked softly. They took your college fund? I nodded against his shoulder. Bought a stupid boat. Didn't even ask me first. We sat on his porch, and I told him everything. About the boat, about their dismissal of my feelings, about the house I'd purchased with my own savings and investments. Are you sure you want to go through with this? Philip asked, handing me a tissue. Once you tell them about the house, there's no going back. They need to learn they can't just walk all over me. I wiped my eyes. I've spent years watching them favor Harley, making excuses for everything he does. Well, now they'll see what it feels like to have their dreams crushed. My phone buzzed again. This time it was my grandmother, Joanna. Heard about the boat, she said when I answered. Come over for tea? Be there in 20, I replied, grateful for the one family member who always had my back. When I arrived, Grandma Joanna was waiting with fresh cookies and knowing eyes. Sometimes, she said, sliding a cup of tea across the table, the best revenge isn't loud and angry. It's quiet and clever. I pulled out the house keys and set them on the table. Like buying the property they've been dreaming about before they could get their hands on it, a slow smile spread across her face. Exactly like that. She reached across and squeezed my hand. You've always been smarter than they gave you credit for, dear. I'm scared, I admitted, but I'm also tired of being the family doormat. Good, she nodded. Fear means you understand the consequences, but sometimes burning bridges lights the way forward. She took a sip of her tea. When do you plan to tell them? I thought about Harley's smug face as he showed off his new boat, about my mother's casual dismissal of my future. Soon, I said, gripping the house keys tightly. Very soon. The weight of the keys in my hand felt different now, not heavy with dread, but solid with purpose. My family thought they knew me, thought they could predict my every move. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. 3 years earlier, I'd overheard a conversation that changed everything. I was bringing coffee to my mother's office when Harley's voice drifted through the partially open door. That property on Marina Drive would be perfect, Mom. We could turn it into the flagship restaurant for our entertainment empire. It's not for sale yet, my mother replied, but the owner's getting old. Give it a few years, and we'll make our move. I paused outside, coffee growing cold in my hands. What about the money? Harley asked. We'll need at least $300,000 for the down payment. Well, my mother's voice dropped lower. There's always Elisa's college fund. She probably won't need all of it anyway. That night, I opened my first investment account with the $5,000 I'd saved from my part-time job at the library. The memory of that moment played in my mind as I sat across from Philip at our favorite coffee shop, watching him scroll through the photos of my new house. I still can't believe you pulled this off, he said, shaking his head. 3 years of working 2 jobs, living like a hermit, and investing every penny. The crypto boom helped, I admitted, stirring my latte. Getting in early on those tech stocks, too. But mostly it was just, I gestured to my worn sweater and scuffed shoes. This. Living below my means while they all thought I was just bad with money. Speaking of your family, Philip leaned forward, your brother's been posting nonstop about that boat on social media. Living the dream and family empire everywhere. I pulled out my phone and showed him Harley's latest post. A photo of him lounging on the boat that my college fund had bought. The caption read, "Big plans coming soon. Watch this space for the next Rogers family venture." They have no idea you own the house, do they? Philip asked. Not yet. I used my grandmother's address for all the paperwork. I smiled, remembering how Joanna had insisted on helping. The real estate agent thinks I'm an investor looking to preserve the property's historical character. The bell above the coffee shop door chimed, and I instinctively ducked lower in my seat as my mother walked in. She didn't notice us, too absorbed in her phone call. Yes, we're very interested in the Marina Drive property, she was saying. As soon as it hits the market, we want first right of refusal. Philip raised an eyebrow at me as my mother ordered her coffee and left, still talking about renovation plans and permits. You know what's crazy? I said once she was gone. If they'd just asked me about the boat, explained their plans, maybe even offered to pay me back, I probably would have helped them, but they just took what was mine, like I didn't matter. When are you going to tell them? I'm waiting for the perfect moment. I pulled out the set of keys I'd received yesterday. They're having a family dinner next week to discuss their expansion plans. Seems like the right time to drop my own little bombshell. Later that evening, I visited Grandma Joanna again. She was in her garden, tending to her roses, when I arrived. Your mother called today, she said, pruning shears snipping precisely. She was quite excited about their plans for the Marina Drive property. Did she mention how they funded Harley's new boat? Joanna's shears paused mid-cut. Not a word, but I have ways of finding things out. She turned to face me. You know, when I was your age, my own brother tried something similar. Convinced our parents to give him my inheritance early for a can't-miss business opportunity. What happened? The business failed, of course. She resumed pruning. But more importantly, he learned that taking advantage of family has consequences. Sometimes those consequences take years to surface, but they always do. Did you ever forgive him? Eventually, but our relationship was never the same. She set down her shears and took my hands in hers. Are you prepared for that possibility? I thought about all the times I'd watched Harley get everything he wanted while I worked and saved. About my mother's constant dismissal of my dreams in favor of his schemes. I think that relationship changed the moment they stole my future, I said quietly. Then you're not really destroying anything, Joanna replied, squeezing my hands. You're just making the truth visible. As I drove home that evening, I passed the Marina Drive property. My property now. The old Victorian house stood proud against the setting sun, its weathered facade hiding secrets just like I did. Soon, very soon, those secrets would come to light. I touched the keys in my pocket and smiled. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just about getting even. It's about taking control of your own story. You should see the plans I've drawn up, Harley announced at breakfast, spreading blueprints across our kitchen table, not caring that his elbow knocked over my coffee. The Marina Drive house will be perfect once we gut it. Main floor restaurant, rooftop bar, maybe even a small music venue in the basement. I dabbed at the coffee stains spreading across my shirt. Sounds expensive. That's the beauty of it, he grinned, completely missing my sarcasm. The old owner doesn't know what they're sitting on. Mom's been watching the property for years. Once it hits the market, we'll swoop in with an offer they can't refuse. And where's this money coming from? I asked, keeping my voice carefully neutral. Since you spent my college fund on the boat? Mom walked in, cutting off any response. Harley, darling, I just got off the phone with the realtor. She says there's been some interest in the property already. I pretended to be absorbed in my phone while they talked, but my ears were burning. What do you mean, interest? Harley's voice rose. It's not even officially listed yet. Apparently someone's been making inquiries, Mom replied, pouring herself coffee. Some investor who wants to preserve the historical character of the building. I bit my lip to hide my smile. Historical character? Harley scoffed. It's just an old house. We need to act fast, Mom. Can we make a preemptive offer? I've tried, but the realtor says the owner's already in talks with this other buyer. Mom sighed. But don't worry, I'm not giving up. I've got another meeting with her today. My phone buzzed. A real call this time, from the same realtor. I excused myself to answer it in the hallway. Ms. Rogers? I wanted to let you know your mother has scheduled another meeting to discuss the Marina Drive property, the realtor whispered. I'm not sure how long I can keep deflecting without revealing you're the buyer. Just hold them off a little longer, I replied quietly. I'm telling them everything next week. Back in the kitchen, Harley was still ranting. This is our future, our empire. Some history buff can't just swoop in and ruin everything. Maybe they have plans too, I suggested, sliding back into my seat. Dreams of their own. What would you know about dreams? Harley sneered. You can barely manage a checking account. Mom placed a hand on his arm. Harley, be nice to your sister. Elisa, why don't you help us brainstorm? You could be part of this too. Really? I raised an eyebrow. Like how I was part of the decision to spend my college fund. That again? Harley rolled his eyes. Get over it already. This is bigger than your community college plans. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. I have to get to work. Some of us still have to earn our way. Later that day, Philip met me for lunch at the diner where I worked my second job. I served tables while telling him about the morning's events. They're getting desperate, I said, refilling a customer's coffee. You should have seen Harley's face when Mom mentioned another buyer. Are you having second thoughts? Philip asked between bites of his burger. No, but I leaned against the counter. Sometimes I wonder what Dad would think about all this. Your dad was a good man who believed in hard work and honesty, a voice said behind me. I turned to find Grandma Joanna settling onto a bar stool. He'd be proud of you for standing up for yourself. Grandma, what are you doing here? Can't a grandmother check on her granddaughter? She smiled, but her eyes were serious. Your mother called me, trying to see if I'd help finance their restaurant plans. My stomach dropped. What did you say? I told her I'd think about it. Joanna stirred sugar into her coffee. Didn't mention I've already invested in a different project. She winked at me. The family dinner's in 3 days, I said quietly. Everything's going to change. Change isn't always bad, dear. Joanna reached across the counter and squeezed my hand. Sometimes it's necessary. After my shift, I drove past the Marina Drive house again. A sold sign had appeared in the window. My realtor's way of telling me the sale was officially recorded. In less than 72 hours, I'd tell my family that their dreams of an entertainment empire had been built on quicksand. My phone buzzed with a text from Harley. Family meeting tonight. Emergency strategy session about Marina Drive. Be there or prove you don't care about this family. I typed back, wouldn't miss it for the world. Sometimes the hardest part of revenge isn't the planning or the execution. It's maintaining your poker face while watching your targets walk straight into the trap they've set for themselves. The emergency family meeting turned out to be exactly what I expected. Harley pacing the living room, waving his arms as he ranted about the Marina Drive property slipping through his fingers. We need to pool all our resources, he declared. Mom's savings, my boat revenue, maybe even take out a loan. The boat's making revenue already? I asked innocently. It's only been a week. Harley shot me a dark look. I've got 3 tours booked for next month. That's not the point. The point is, Mom interjected, we need to show we're serious buyers. Elisa, honey, do you have any savings you could contribute? The irony was almost too much. You mean, besides my college fund? An uncomfortable silence filled the room. Mom shifted in her seat while Harley's jaw clenched. I think I'll make some tea, Mom said, escaping to the kitchen. As soon as she left, Harley rounded on me. Would you stop with the guilt trips? This is exactly why we didn't consult you about the boat. You're so small-minded. Small-minded? I stood up. Is that what you call wanting an education? Education? He laughed. While I'm building an empire, you're stuck waiting tables and shelving books. Face it, sis. You're going nowhere. I grabbed my keys. I need some air. Running away again? Harley called after me. Typical Elisa, always too weak to face reality. I drove straight to Grandma Joanna's house, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. She opened the door before I could knock, one look at my face telling her everything she needed to know. Come help me with these photo albums, she said, leading me to her study. I've been meaning to organize them. We sat on the floor, surrounded by old photographs. She handed me one showing my father standing proudly in front of his first hardware store. Your father built that business from nothing, she said softly. No shortcuts, no stepping on others, just hard work and integrity. Harley says I'm going nowhere, I whispered, tracing Dad's smile in the photo. Harley, Joanna said firmly, doesn't know the difference between noise and progress. She pulled out another photo. Me at 16, accepting a math competition trophy. You've always been the quiet achiever, just like your father. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. Please come home. We need to discuss this as a family. They want me to contribute my savings to their restaurant plan, I told Joanna. She raised an eyebrow. The savings they don't know about? For the property you already own? The very same. I showed her Harley's latest social media post. Another photo of the boat with the caption, Big moves coming soon. Watch this space. Harsh family empire. Harsh success. Your brother, Joanna said carefully, reminds me of those peacocks in the zoo. All show, no substance. She patted my hand. But you, my dear, are an owl. Quiet, watchful, and far wiser than anyone suspects. My phone buzzed again, this time from Philip. Heads up. Your brother's at the diner asking questions about your work schedule and tips. Think he's trying to figure out how much money you have. They're getting desperate, I told Joanna, showing her the message. Good, she replied, surprising me. Let them squirm a bit. They need to learn that actions have consequences. When I finally returned home, Mom was waiting up. Sweetie, I know we hurt you with the college fund situation, she began. Do you? I interrupted. Because it seems like you and Harley have it all figured out. The boat, the restaurant, the family empire. Where do I fit in any of that? You could manage the restaurant. She brightened. You're good with numbers. And stop. I held up my hand. Just stop. You don't get to decide my future anymore. I headed upstairs, but her voice followed me. The family dinner's tomorrow night. Please come. Harley has some big announcements. Oh, I'll be there, I muttered under my breath, touching the house keys in my pocket, with some announcements of my own. In my room, I pulled out the property deed and laid it on my desk. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow, they'd learn that the quiet daughter they'd dismissed had outmaneuvered them all. My phone lit up with one final text from Grandma Joanna. Remember, dear, the best revenge isn't just about winning. It's about standing up for what's right. Sleep well. Tomorrow you take back your power. I touched the deed one last time before turning out the light. Tomorrow couldn't come soon enough. The family dinner started exactly as I expected, with Harley commanding everyone's attention. Mom had prepared his favorite lasagna, and Grandma Joanna sat across from me, her eyes twinkling with anticipation. Before we eat, Harley announced, standing and raising his glass, I have some exciting news. Despite some complications with our original property plans, I've secured a meeting with potential investors for our restaurant venture. That's wonderful, darling, Mom beamed. When? Next week. They're very interested in our vision. He smiled smugly. Of course, it would be better if we had the Marina Drive location locked down, but we'll figure something out. Actually, I set down my fork, my heart pounding. I have some news about that. Not now, Elisa. Mom waved her hand dismissively. Let your brother finish. No, I said firmly, pulling out the property deed from my bag. I think you'll want to hear this. The room fell silent as I placed the document on the table. Harley's face scrunched in confusion as he leaned forward to read it. What is this? He asked, his voice suddenly uncertain. The deed to 1247 Marina Drive, I replied calmly. My property. Mom's wine glass slipped from her hand, spilling red across the white tablecloth. What? I'm the investor your realtor's been talking to, I continued, watching their faces. I bought it last week. It's mine. Harley snatched up the deed, his hands shaking. This is impossible. You don't have this kind of money. I did, actually. 3 years of savings, smart investments, and 2 jobs. I turned to Mom. Turns out I'm better with money than you thought. Harley's face turned red. You did this on purpose. You knew we wanted that property. Like you knew I wanted to go to college, I shot back. Funny how that works. Elisa, Mom's voice quavered. Surely we can work something out. We're family. Family? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Was it family when you took my college fund without asking? When you dismissed my dreams because they didn't fit into Harley's grand plans? You ungrateful little... Harley started to rise, but Grandma Joanna's voice cut through the tension. Sit down, Harley. Her tone left no room for argument. I think it's time everyone here learned a lesson about consequences. You knew about this? Mom turned to her mother, betrayal written across her face. I did. Joanna took a sip of her wine. And I helped her. Someone had to stand up for what's right. This isn't right. Harley slammed his fist on the table. This is sabotage. You've ruined everything. No, I stood up slowly. I took control of my own future. Something you two taught me to do, actually, by showing me exactly how it feels to have someone else decide your fate. We can offer you money, Mom said desperately, more than you paid for it. It's not for sale. I picked up the deed. I have my own plans for the property. What plans? Harley sneered. A library? A study hall? Actually, I'm turning it into a community education center, with affordable classes, workshops, and yes, a library. I smiled. Not everyone can afford to have their college fund turned into a boat. The silence that followed was deafening. Mom stared at her spilled wine. Harley's face cycled through shades of red, and Grandma Joanna looked proudly in my direction. You've changed, Mom finally whispered. No, I corrected her. I just stopped letting you ignore who I've always been. Harley stormed out, the front door slamming behind him. Mom started to cry quietly, dabbing at her eyes with her napkin. Well? Grandma Joanna stood up, gathering her purse. I think that's enough excitement for one evening. Elisa, dear, would you walk me to my car? Outside, the night air was cool on my flushed face. Joanna hugged me tightly. You did well, she said. It's not easy standing up to family, but sometimes it's necessary. What happens now? I asked, suddenly feeling the weight of everything. Now? She smiled. Now you build something meaningful. Something that helps others avoid the position you were in. She squeezed my hand. Your father would be so proud. As I watched her drive away, I heard the front door open behind me. Mom stood there, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. We really hurt you, didn't we? She said softly. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. I don't know how to fix this, she admitted. Maybe, I replied. You should stop trying to fix things and start listening instead. I walked to my car, leaving her in the doorway. Tomorrow would bring more drama, more accusations, more attempts to change my mind. But for now, I felt lighter than I had in years. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about hurting others. It's about finally standing up for yourself. The morning after the revelation, I arrived at work to find Harley waiting outside the library. He was wearing his best suit, the one he saved for impressing investors. "We need to talk," he said, following me through the staff entrance. "I'm working, Harley." I started sorting returns onto my cart. "I'll make this quick." He straightened his tie. "Name your price for the property." I pushed my cart between the shelves, methodically replacing books. "It's not for sale." "Don't be childish." He grabbed a book from my cart, holding it hostage. "This little revenge plot was cute, but it's time to be realistic. You're not really going to waste that property on an education center, are you?" "Waste?" I snatched the book back. "Like you wasted my college fund?" "That was an investment. So is this." I turned to face him. "But my investment will help people, not just feed your ego." His face darkened. "Mom's devastated, you know. She barely slept last night." "Really?" I raised an eyebrow. "Did she cry as much as I did when I found out my future had been stolen?" "I talked to some lawyers this morning." He switched tactics, voice dropping low. "There might be grounds to challenge the sale, given that you used Mom's address initially." "Actually," I cut him off, "I used Grandma's address. Everything's legal and properly documented. But nice try." He grabbed my arm as I tried to move past him. "You're making a huge mistake. Is there a problem here?" My supervisor appeared at the end of the aisle, frowning. "No problem." I pulled free. "My brother was just leaving." Later that day, Mom showed up at my second job at the diner. She sat at the counter, ordering nothing, just watching me work. "Can I get you something?" I finally asked during a lull. "Remember when you were little," she said, ignoring my question, "and you used to play restaurant with your toy cash register? You were always so good with numbers." "Mom, you could still be part of the family business," she pressed. "We could work together, make it something special." "Like you made my college fund into something special?" I started wiping down the counter, needing to keep my hands busy. "I made a mistake," she admitted quietly. "We both did. But this revenge, it's not you, Elisa. You don't know me, Mom." I stopped wiping. That's the whole problem. My phone buzzed. A text from Philip. "Heads up. Harley's posting about fraudulent property sales on social media." Mom saw my expression change as I read the message. "He's just hurt," she defended quickly. "We all are." "Hurt?" I laughed bitterly. "He's trying to destroy my reputation because he can't handle losing. He's your brother. And I was your daughter." The words exploded out louder than intended, drawing stares from nearby customers. I lowered my voice. "I was your daughter, but you treated me like an ATM for Harley's dreams." She reached for my hand, but I pulled back. "I need to get back to work." That evening, I met Grandma Joanna at the Marina Drive house. We walked through the empty rooms, our footsteps echoing on the hardwood floors. "Harley's getting desperate," I told her, showing her his social media posts. "Of course he is," she replied, running her hand along an antique banister. "He's never had to face consequences before. Mom came to the diner today, tried to convince me to sell. And I almost felt bad, until I saw Harley's posts." Joanna stopped at a window, looking out at the garden. "Your father built his first store in a building like this. Everyone told him it was too old, too much work, but he saw the potential." She turned to me. "What do you see when you look at this place?" I gazed around the room, seeing past the peeling wallpaper and dusty corners. "I see second chances, for people who need education but can't afford traditional college, for kids who need a quiet place to study, for anyone who's been told their dreams don't matter." "Then hold on to that vision," she said firmly, "because the next few days are going to get worse before they get better." My phone buzzed again. Another text from Philip. "Your brother just showed up at my place looking for dirt on your finances. He's really losing it." "Let him look," I said, showing Joanna the message. "Everything I did was legal and above board, unlike some people's business practices." Joanna squeezed my shoulder. "Sometimes the hardest part of standing your ground isn't the initial fight. It's weathering the storm that follows. I touched the wall of what would soon be a classroom. Then let it storm. The final showdown happened on a Sunday evening, exactly 1 week after my revelation at the family dinner. Mom had insisted on another family meeting, this time at the Marina Drive house itself. I arrived to find Harley's new boat conspicuously parked in the driveway, blocking my usual spot. Inside, Mom and Harley were already waiting with Grandma Joanna. The empty rooms amplified every sound, making the tension feel even heavier. "Nice of you to join us," Harley said, his smile not reaching his eyes. "I've been doing some research about this place." "Have you?" I leaned against the door frame, arms crossed. "The foundation needs work. Electrical's not up to code. Plumbing's ancient." He pulled out a stack of papers. "Getting this place ready for your little education center would cost a fortune." "I know," I replied calmly. "I had it inspected before I bought it." "Then you know it's not feasible," Mom jumped in. "Honey, be reasonable. Sell it to us, and we'll give you enough to go to any college you want." "With what money?" I asked. "The boat's not exactly bringing in millions, is it?" Harley's face reddened. "That's none of your business." "Actually," Grandma Joanna spoke up, "I'd like to know too. How are those tours going, Harley?" He shifted uncomfortably. "We've had some cancellations. Temporary setback." "All of them?" I pulled out my phone, showing a screenshot. "Because according to your booking site, you haven't had a single customer." "You're tracking my business?" he sputtered. "No, I'm tracking what happened to my college fund." I turned to Mom. "Did you know he's already trying to sell the boat? Listed it yesterday for half what you paid." Mom's face went pale. "Harley, is this true?" "I can explain." "Like you explained how taking my college fund was for the good of the family?" I cut in. "Face it, Harley. Your empire is built on stolen dreams and empty promises." He lunged forward suddenly, grabbing my arm. "You think you're so smart, don't you? Little Miss Perfect, with her secret investments and clever plans? Let go of her." Grandma Joanna's voice cracked like a whip. "Or what?" Harley sneered, but his grip loosened. "Going to cut me out of the will, too?" "Actually," Joanna pulled out her own stack of papers, "I've already revised my estate plans. The money I'd set aside for the restaurant? It's going to Elisa's education center instead." The silence that followed was deafening. Mom sank onto a dusty windowsill, while Harley's face went from red to white. "You can't do that," he whispered. "I already have." Joanna moved to stand beside me. "Because unlike some people, I believe in investing in dreams that help others, not just ourselves." "This isn't fair." Harley kicked an empty paint can, sending it clattering across the floor. "Everything was perfect until you ruined it." "Perfect?" I laughed incredulously. "You stole my future." "We borrowed it," he shouted back, "without asking, without caring, just like you've always done, taking whatever you want because Mom taught you that you deserved it." "Enough." Mom stood up, tears streaming down her face. "Just enough." She turned to Harley. "Is it true about the boat?" His silence was answer enough. "I trusted you," she whispered. "I let you convince me that taking Elisa's money was the right thing to do." "Mom." "No." She held up her hand. "I've been blind. To so many things." She turned to me. "Including the damage I've done to you." I felt tears pricking at my eyes but forced them back. "It's a little late for that realization." "I know." She picked up her purse. "But maybe it's not too late to start making things right." She headed for the door, then paused. "Harley, I want the boat sold by the end of the week. And Elisa?" She met my eyes. "I hope someday you can forgive me for failing you." After she left, Harley stood there, deflated and defeated. "You've destroyed everything." "No," I replied quietly. "You did that yourself. I just refuse to be collateral damage anymore." He stormed out, the front door slamming behind him. The sound echoed through the empty house, marking the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. Grandma Joanna wrapped an arm around my shoulders. "Well, that was quite a performance." Did I do the right thing? I asked, suddenly uncertain. The right thing isn't always the easy thing, she replied. But standing up for yourself? That's always right. Through the window, I watched Harley's boat pull away, a symbol of everything that had gone wrong in our family. But around me stood the walls of everything that could go right, a place of learning, of second chances, of dreams rebuilt from the ashes of betrayal. The morning of the education center's opening day, I stood in what used to be the master bedroom, now transformed into a computer lab. Philip was setting up the last of the workstations while Grandma Joanna arranged flowers on the front desk. First student arrives in an hour, Philip said, checking his watch. Nervous? Before I could answer, a knock at the door made us all turn. Mom stood in the doorway, holding a small package. I wasn't sure if I should come, she said softly. But you did, I replied, watching her take in the changes we'd made to the house. She walked slowly through the room, running her hand along one of the new desks. It's beautiful. Nothing like what Harley planned, but better. Have you heard from him? I asked, though I already knew the answer from social media. He'd moved to Florida, supposedly to expand his business opportunities. He's avoiding my calls. She set the package down. The boat sold last week. I wanted you to have this. She pushed the package toward me. Inside was a check, for exactly the amount of my original college fund. Mom, please, she interrupted. I know it doesn't fix everything, but it's a start. I studied her face, seeing for the first time the toll the past months had taken. The proud, dismissive woman who had always sided with Harley was gone, replaced by someone who looked tired, real. I can't accept this, I said, pushing the check back. Elisa, please. No, Mom, listen. I gestured around the room. Look at what I built without it. Without you or Harley. I needed to know I could do that. A small group of people appeared in the doorway, our first prospective students, early for orientation. Philip quickly went to greet them while Joanna busied herself with last-minute adjustments. Then what can I do? Mom asked, her voice barely a whisper. You could stay? I surprised myself by saying. See what your daughter actually built, instead of what your son promised to build. She nodded, wiping away tears. I'd like that. The orientation room filled quickly. Single parents looking for better opportunities, teenagers who couldn't afford a traditional college, older adults seeking career changes. Each face told a story of dreams deferred but not abandoned. I stepped up to the podium, my prepared speech forgotten as I looked at the crowd. My mother sat in the back row next to Grandma Joanna. Philip gave me a thumbs up from his spot by the door. Welcome to Second Chances Education Center, I began. This place exists because I believe everyone deserves the opportunity to pursue their dreams, regardless of their circumstances or what others think is possible. As I spoke, I saw my mother crying quietly in her seat, but for once, her tears didn't make me feel guilty or angry. They felt like recognition of what I'd achieved, of who I'd become despite everything. After the orientation, as the last students filed out with their registration packets, Mom approached me again. What you said about second chances, she hesitated. Does that apply to mothers too? I thought about all the anger I'd carried, all the hurt and betrayal. But I also thought about the strength I'd found because of it. There's an adult education class starting next week, I said finally. Basic business accounting. Maybe you could sit in, see what it's like to build something legitimate. She smiled, a real smile, not the indulgent one she used to give me. I'd like that. As she left, Philip and Joanna joined me at the front desk. Well, Philip asked, how does it feel? I looked around at what we'd created, not just classrooms and computers, but a space where dreams wouldn't be stolen or dismissed, where people like me could find their power. It feels like winning, I said, but not the way I expected. The best victories rarely are what we expect, Joanna said, hugging me. They're better. Through the window, I could see my mother getting into her car. She paused, looking back at the house, not with regret for what could have been, but with something that looked like pride. For the first time, I realized that maybe the best revenge wasn't about making others lose, but about showing them a better way to win. "Ready to start teaching?" Philip asked, handing me the day's schedule. I took one last look around the room, at the dreams we'd build, the lives we'd change, the future we'd shape. Ready. Sometimes the hardest lessons teach us the most important truths: that our worth isn't determined by those who dismiss us, that our dreams don't need anyone else's permission to grow, and that the best revenge is simply becoming exactly who we were meant to be.
I ordered champagne for the entire office. The expensive kind because some moments demand extravagance. When the board calls you at 7 a.m. on a Tuesday to offer you the CEO position you've worked toward for 12 years, you don't celebrate with Prosecco. To Tinsley! Olive raised her glass, her eyes crinkling with pride. The youngest CEO in Meridian's history, and the first woman to break that ceiling. The conference room erupted in cheers. I soaked in the moment, letting the validation wash over me. For once, I didn't deflect the praise or minimize my accomplishment. I'd earned this. All those missed birthdays, canceled vacations, and 3 a.m. strategy sessions had finally paid off. "Speech," someone called out. I straightened my blazer and cleared my throat. I promised to keep this short because we have actual work to do. Laughter rippled through the room. When I started here, I was just trying to survive. My parents were gone, I had student loans crushing me, and I just needed to prove, to myself more than anyone, that I could stand on my own. My voice caught unexpectedly. I hadn't planned to get emotional, but 12 years of grinding suddenly compressed into this single moment. But you all became more than colleagues. You became my family. I raised my glass. So this isn't my achievement, it's ours. And I promise to lead Meridian with the same dedication and heart that each of you brings every day. The door swung open as I finished. Sarah strode in, fashionably late as always, her smile dazzling. My best friend since business school, the one person who'd seen me through every professional battle and personal crisis. "Sorry I'm late." She breezed in, accepting a glass from Peyton. Traffic was a nightmare, but I wouldn't miss celebrating my best friend for anything. I moved to hug her, but she stepped toward the center of the room instead, tapping her glass with a pen. "While we're all gathered, I actually have an announcement of my own." Sarah's voice carried that musical quality that always commanded attention. I wanted Tinsley to hear this from me personally. Something in her tone made my stomach tighten. "The board called me this morning." Her smile widened. "They've appointed me as Meridian's new CEO, effective immediately." The champagne turned sour in my mouth. I stared at her, waiting for the punchline, the just kidding that never came. "There must be some mistake," I said, my voice unnaturally calm. "The board called me this morning, Chairman Elliott himself." Sarah's expression shifted to something resembling pity. "Oh, Tins, that was the preliminary call. They wanted your input as a valued executive, but the final decision came down after further deliberation." The room had gone completely silent. Faces turned from Sarah to me, then awkwardly away. "That's not possible," I said, louder now. "I have the offer letter. I've already accepted." "You received a draft," Sarah corrected, her voice gentle but firm. "If you check your email, you'll see the board's final communication. They felt my connections with Westridge Investments would better position Meridian for the merger." My phone was already in my hand, email open. There it was, a message from Chairman Elliott sent 30 minutes ago. Subject line, CEO position update. I scanned it quickly, each word a fresh cut. "After careful consideration, alternative candidate, appreciate your continued contributions. Regret any miscommunication." You knew. The realization hit me like physical pain. "You knew they were considering you when I told you about my call this morning." Sarah's smile faltered slightly. "Business is business, Tins. You've always been brilliant at operations, but leadership requires political savvy. The board needs someone who can navigate the social aspects of the role." "Social aspects?" I echoed, disbelief making my voice shake. "You mean your father's golf buddies on the Westridge board?" She shrugged, not even bothering to deny it. "Connections matter. Always have. 12 years of friendship. Countless nights spent on her couch when work ran late. I'd been the maid of honor at her engagement party last month, and all that time. "You let me plan this celebration," I said, the pieces clicking together. "You knew they were going to give you the position, and you let me order champagne and invite everyone." "I thought it would be easier this way," Sarah said, glancing around the room. "A chance for a smooth transition. We're still a team, Tins." Roslyn from marketing slipped out of the room. Others followed, murmuring excuses. Only Olive remained beside me, her hand on my arm. "Congratulations, Sarah," Peyton said, breaking the awful silence. "When do you want to schedule the formal announcement?" And just like that, they moved on. Sarah began outlining her vision while I stood frozen, champagne glass still in hand, watching my future dissolve. I set down my glass with deliberate care and walked out. In the hallway, tears blurred my vision, but I refused to let them fall until I reached the privacy of the restroom. Olive followed me in. "Tinsley." "She planned this," I whispered, gripping the edge of the sink. "She used our friendship to climb over me." "What are you going to do?" Olive asked. I met my own gaze in the mirror, watching as something hardened behind my eyes. 12 years of work, a lifetime of proving myself, all stolen in an instant by the one person I trusted most. I wiped away a single tear that had escaped. "This isn't over." 3 days. I'd spent 3 days in my apartment with the blinds drawn, ignoring calls and living on delivery food I barely tasted. My laptop remained closed. What was the point? 12 years of work, and Sarah had erased it all with a smile. I scrolled through our text history. Years of inside jokes, late-night pep talks, celebration emojis. Had any of it been real? The last message from her sat unanswered. "We should talk when you're ready. This doesn't have to change anything between us." Didn't have to change anything? She'd stolen my life and expected what? That we'd still meet for Sunday brunch? My doorbell rang. I ignored it. It rang again, followed by persistent knocking. "I know you're in there, Tinsley." Olive's voice called through the door. "I brought food from that Thai place you like. Open up or I'm using the emergency key." I shuffled to the door in the same sweatpants I'd worn since leaving the office. Olive took one look at me, and her expression shifted from concern to alarm. "Jesus, Tinsley." She pushed past me, setting down bags of food. "When's the last time you showered?" I shrugged. "What day is it?" "Friday." She opened my blinds, and I winced at the sunlight. "You've missed 3 days of work." "Does it matter? I'm clearly dispensable." Olive turned to face me, hands on hips. "So that's it? Sarah wins because you're hiding in your apartment feeling sorry for yourself?" What exactly am I supposed to do? My voice cracked. She had this planned for months. The board already made their decision. "And you're just going to accept that?" Olive began unpacking containers of food. "The Tinsley I know would fight." "Fight how? Sarah's father practically owns Westridge. She's been working angles I didn't even know existed." "Then find new angles." Olive shoved a plate of pad thai toward me. "Eat. You can't think when you're starving." I took a reluctant bite, suddenly realizing how hungry I was. As I ate, Olive moved around my apartment, picking up discarded takeout containers and opening windows. "You know what bothers me most?" I said between bites. "I keep replaying every conversation, every confidence I shared with her. All those times I told Sarah about my ideas, my strategies." I set down my fork as realization dawned. "Oh my God." "What?" "The Westridge merger. 3 months ago, I told Sarah about finding inconsistencies in their financial projections. She dismissed it, said I was overthinking." I stood up, pacing now. What if she's been feeding them information? What if she's been undermining me all along? Olive watched me carefully. "That's a serious accusation." "Is it? She let me plan a celebration for a job she knew I wouldn't get. What wouldn't she do?" My phone buzzed with a text. Sarah again. "The team misses you. When are you coming back?" I threw my phone onto the couch. She's texting like nothing happened, like we're still friends. "Maybe that's your advantage," Olive said quietly. "She thinks you're broken." I stopped pacing. "What?" "Sarah expects you to either quit or come crawling back, tail between your legs. She doesn't expect you to fight." For the first time in days, I felt something other than despair, a flicker of determination. Even if I wanted to fight, where would I start? Olive pulled out her phone. "With this." She showed me an email. I forwarded this to myself before I left that day. It's the original offer letter they sent you. I scanned it quickly. This doesn't help. Sarah already explained it away as a draft. Look at the signature block. That's not how drafts are sent. And look at the timestamp. It came after the board's final meeting, not before. My heart began to race. So they did officially offer me the position. And then rescinded it after Sarah got involved. Olive's eyes narrowed. The question is, what did she tell them to change their minds so dramatically? I sat down at my laptop, opening it for the first time in days. I need to find out what happened in those hours between my offer and the reversal. You'll need allies, Olive warned. Sarah has the board's ear now. Rosalind from marketing, I said, remembering how she'd looked at Sarah during the announcement. She's never liked Sarah. And Peyton, he's always played both sides. He might know something. What about Reggie in legal? He's been asking about you. I glanced up, surprised. Reggie? We barely talk. He's been concerned. Said something about the legality of rescinding an accepted offer. I hadn't considered the legal angle. I'll talk to him Monday. So you're coming back? Olive smiled. Yes. I straightened my shoulders. But not as the defeated ex-almost CEO. If Sarah wants to play dirty, she's about to learn I can get my hands dirty too. As Olive left, I opened my email, searching for any communications about the Westridge merger. Something caught my eye. An email chain I'd been copied on by mistake, quickly recalled by the sender. I'd never opened it, until now. The subject line read, Re Valdez Concerns, Containment Strategy. My hands trembled as I clicked. There it was, proof that Sarah had been working against me for months. The email mentioned neutralizing Valdez's objections to the merger and alternative leadership more aligned with Westridge's vision. I stared at the screen, ice replacing the blood in my veins. This wasn't just opportunism. This was calculated betrayal. Monday morning, I walked into Meridian with my head high and a knot in my stomach. The office felt different, like walking into your home after a break-in. Everything looked the same but felt violated. Tinsley! Peyton spotted me first, his surprise poorly concealed. Good to have you back. I smiled tightly. Wouldn't miss work for the world. Whispers followed me to my office. My same office, thankfully, though I half expected to find my things in boxes. Inside, I found a handwritten note on my desk. Tins, let's grab lunch and catch up. So glad you're back. S. I crumpled it and tossed it in the trash. The familiar gesture felt hollow now, knowing what I knew. I opened my computer and began methodically searching for more evidence of Sarah's manipulation. A knock at my door interrupted me. Reggie from legal stood there, his tall frame awkward in my doorway. Hey, he said quietly. Got a minute? I gestured to the chair across from me. Reggie and I had worked together on contracts for years, but our relationship had always been strictly professional. I'd never noticed how his eyes crinkled at the corners when he was concerned. Olive mentioned you might need some legal perspective, he said, closing the door behind him. I'm not sure I'm ready to pursue legal action, I replied carefully. I'm not here as Meridian's lawyer right now. He leaned forward. This is off the record, as a colleague who respects your work. I studied him, weighing my options. What do you know about the CEO appointment process? I know the board voted unanimously for you initially. I drafted the offer letter myself. My heart skipped. Then what happened? Reggie hesitated. There was an emergency board meeting the next morning. I wasn't included, but I know Sarah presented something that changed their minds. Do you know what? He shook his head. But I can tell you this. Rescinding a formally accepted offer is legally questionable. If you wanted to challenge it, you'd have grounds. At what cost? My career would be over. Maybe. His eyes met mine. Or maybe you'd expose something the board needs to know before this merger goes through. I was about to respond when my phone buzzed with a text from Rosalind. Need to talk. Women's restroom, 3rd floor, now. I have to go, I told Reggie. Thank you for this. He nodded. Be careful, Tinsley. Sarah has more allies than you think. The 3rd floor restroom was rarely used. Perfect for a private conversation. Rosalind was checking under stall doors when I arrived. We're clear, she said, locking the main door. I don't have much time. What's going on? Sarah's called an all-hands meeting for this afternoon. She's announcing accelerated merger plans with Westridge. My stomach dropped. That's too fast. We haven't completed due diligence. Exactly. Rosalind lowered her voice. And I found something when preparing the marketing materials. The numbers don't add up. Westridge is overstating their client base by at least 30%. The same discrepancy I found months ago, I murmured. I told Sarah about it. Well, she's buried it. The board presentation omits all those details. Rosalind handed me a flash drive. This has the original data sets before they were cleaned up for the board. I stared at the tiny device. Why are you helping me? Rosalind's expression hardened. 2 years ago, I was up for the marketing director position. Sarah told me in confidence that I shouldn't apply, that I wasn't ready. I later found out she'd recommended someone else while pretending to support me. Another victim of Sarah's manipulations. Thank you for this. Be smart about how you use it, she warned. Sarah's already framing you as emotionally unstable after your absence. Perfect. Not only had Sarah stolen my position, she was now undermining my credibility. I spent the next 2 hours analyzing the data Rosalind had provided. The discrepancies were worse than I'd initially thought. Westridge wasn't just inflating numbers, they were hiding significant debt. This merger would be disastrous for Meridian. At 2 p.m., I slipped into the back of the conference room for Sarah's all-hands meeting. She stood at the front, radiant in a power suit, outlining her vision for Meridian's future. The Westridge merger represents a transformative opportunity, she was saying. Their client portfolio complements ours perfectly, and their financial strength will allow us to expand into new markets. I felt sick listening to her sell this lie. When she opened the floor for questions, I couldn't stop myself. What about the discrepancies in Westridge's reported client base? I asked, my voice carrying across the room. Sarah's smile didn't waver, but her eyes flashed with warning. There are no discrepancies, Tinsley. We've done extensive due diligence. Then why does their SEC filing show a 30% smaller client base than what's in your presentation? A murmur went through the room. Sarah laughed lightly. I think you're looking at outdated information. Perhaps we should discuss this privately after the meeting. I'm looking at their filing from last week, I persisted, holding up my tablet, and it shows significant debt that isn't reflected in our merger analysis. The room went silent. Sarah's expression hardened. Tinsley is understandably emotional given recent events. I assure you all, the merger numbers have been thoroughly vetted by our team and the board. As people filed out after the meeting, Sarah cornered me. What the hell was that? She hissed. That was me doing my job, I replied evenly. Something you might try sometime. You're embarrassing yourself. Her voice was cold. This pathetic attempt to undermine me needs to stop. Or what? She stepped closer. Or I'll have to remind the board why they chose me instead of you. Your history of emotional instability, your lack of strategic vision. My history of what? I stared at her, realization dawning. What exactly did you tell them about me? Sarah's smile returned, but it never reached her eyes. Only the truth, Tins. That's all. As she walked away, I stood frozen, finally understanding. This wasn't just about the CEO position or the merger. Sarah had systematically dismantled my reputation behind my back for years. This fight had just become much more personal. You need to decide what matters more, revenge or your career. Olive set her coffee down with a finality that made me wince. We were at a cafe 3 blocks from the office, far enough that we wouldn't run into colleagues. Why can't I have both? I asked, stirring my untouched latte. Because Sarah has positioned you perfectly. Every move you make against her looks like bitter jealousy. Olive leaned forward. That stunt in the meeting yesterday, it made you look desperate. It wasn't a stunt. The Westridge numbers are fabricated. I believe you. But you presented it like a personal attack, not a business concern. I sank back in my chair, the truth of her words stinging. So I'm supposed to sit back and watch Sarah tank the company with a fraudulent merger while destroying my reputation. No, you're supposed to be smarter than she expects. Olive's eyes softened. Tinsley, I've known you for 8 years. You're brilliant at strategy when it's business. But this is personal, and it's making you sloppy. She was right. I'd let emotion drive my actions, playing directly into Sarah's hands. What would you do? I asked. Document everything. Build a case methodically, and find out exactly what Sarah told the board about you. I nodded slowly. I need to talk to Peyton. He sits in on all the board meetings. Be careful. Peyton plays all sides. Exactly why he might talk. I checked my watch. I should get back. I have a meeting with Reggie about the Westridge contracts. Olive gave me a knowing look. Just a meeting? What's that supposed to mean? He's been checking on you every day you were out. That's not just professional concern. I felt my cheeks warm. We're colleagues. Mm-hmm. Olive smiled. Just remember, not everyone at Meridian is your enemy. Back at the office, I found Peyton alone in the break room, methodically selecting a tea bag. Earl Grey or English breakfast? The eternal question, I said, keeping my tone light. He startled slightly. Tinsley, didn't see you there. Got a minute to chat? His eyes darted toward the door. I'm actually late for a meeting with Sarah. It won't take long. I lowered my voice. I need to understand what happened with the CEO appointment. Peyton sighed, abandoning his tea. Look, I like you, Tinsley. Always have. But this isn't a good idea. I just want to know what Sarah told the board about me. He hesitated, conflict evident in his expression. She presented a case that you weren't ready for the position, that your personal history made you unsuitable for high-pressure leadership. My blood ran cold. My personal history? Your parents, he said quietly. She suggested that your abandonment issues make you erratic under pressure, that you'd be a liability during the merger. The room seemed to tilt. Sarah had weaponized my deepest pain, the loss of my parents when I was 19, something I'd shared with her during late nights when defenses were down. The nights I'd cried on her shoulder, trusted her with my fears of never being enough, of everyone eventually leaving. That's why they changed their minds, I whispered. Peyton nodded uncomfortably. She had examples, times you supposedly broke down during stressful projects. That never happened. The board believed her. She was very convincing. I felt sick. Thank you for telling me. Tinsley, he grabbed my arm as I turned to leave. Be careful. Sarah's father has connections beyond Westridge. She could make sure you never work in this industry again. The threat should have frightened me. Instead, it crystallized my resolve. I found Reggie waiting in my office, contract drafts spread across my desk. He looked up when I entered, his expression immediately concerned. What happened? You look like you've seen a ghost. I closed the door behind me. Sarah used my parents' death to convince the board I'm emotionally unstable. Reggie's face darkened. That's beyond unprofessional. It's cruel. It's effective, I said, sitting down heavily. Who would want a CEO with abandonment issues? Someone who recognizes that overcoming personal tragedy creates resilience, not weakness. His voice was quiet but firm. The board should know they've been manipulated. They won't believe me over Sarah, not without proof. Then we find proof. He gestured to the contracts. Starting with these, the Westridge merger terms are unusually favorable to them, almost like someone on our side is deliberately undervaluing Meridian. I leaned forward, professional interest momentarily overriding personal hurt. Show me. For the next hour, we pored over the documents, identifying clause after clause that disadvantaged Meridian. Reggie's legal expertise illuminated issues I might have missed, and I found myself genuinely impressed by his thoroughness. This isn't just bad negotiating, I said finally. This is deliberate sabotage. The question is why, Reggie replied. What does Sarah gain by undervaluing Meridian in this merger? A knock interrupted us. Rosalind slipped in, closing the door quickly behind her. You need to see this, she said, handing me her tablet. Sarah just announced her engagement party. It's this Saturday. I stared at the screen. There was Sarah, beaming beside her fiancé Bradley, announcing an intimate celebration at the Westridge Country Club. Look who's on the guest list, Rosalind said, scrolling down. The entire Meridian board was invited, along with the Westridge executives. She's using her engagement party to finalize the merger details, I realized. Away from the office, away from scrutiny. Away from you, Reggie added. You're conspicuously absent from that invitation list. I handed the tablet back to Rosalind, a plan forming in my mind. I need to be at that party. Tinsley, no, Rosalind warned. That's exactly the kind of emotional reaction she's expecting. I'm not going to make a scene, I said, but that party is where everyone with power will be gathered. If I'm going to expose what Sarah's doing, that's my opportunity. Reggie and Roslyn exchanged concerned glances. What? I demanded. Are you sure this is about saving Meridian? Reggie asked carefully. And not about hurting Sarah? The question hit me like a slap. Was I motivated by professional integrity or personal vengeance? The line had blurred so completely I couldn't tell anymore. Does it matter? I finally asked. If the end result is stopping a fraudulent merger? It matters to you, Reggie said simply, and what this does to you matters to me. The unexpected tenderness in his voice caught me off guard. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with an email notification. From Sarah. Missing your input on the merger team. Let's put our personal issues aside for Meridian's future. Dinner tonight to clear the air? I showed the others. She's trying to neutralize me. Or genuinely extend an olive branch, Reggie suggested. I laughed bitterly. After what Peyton just told me, not likely. What did Peyton say? Roslyn asked. As I explained, their expressions shifted from concern to outrage. That settles it, Roslyn said firmly. We're getting you into that party. I agreed to dinner with Sarah. Know your enemy, as the saying goes. We met at Luciano's, our usual celebration spot. The familiarity felt perverse now, like returning to a childhood home that had been sold to strangers. Sarah was already seated when I arrived, looking perfectly composed in a navy dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. She stood to hug me. I let her, my body stiff. I'm so glad you came, she said, her smile warm and practiced. I've missed you. Have you? I slid into my seat, declining the wine she'd already ordered for me. I need a clear head tonight. Her smile faltered slightly. Still angry, I see. Not angry, just not interested in pretending. The waiter appeared, saving us from the tension. We ordered, she got her usual salmon. I chose something different from my regular order. Even that small deviation felt like a declaration. I meant what I said in my email, Sarah began once we were alone. I value your input on the merger. No one understands Meridian's operations like you do. Interesting pivot, I replied. Yesterday I was emotionally unstable. Today I'm indispensable. She sighed. That was unfortunate timing. You blindsided me in that meeting. Like you blindsided me with the CEO announcement? That was business, Tinsley. This merger is transformative for Meridian. The board needed someone with established connections to Westridge. Someone like you, whose father conveniently sits on their board? Sarah's expression hardened momentarily before smoothing back into concern. I know you're hurt, but this self-destructive crusade isn't like you. People are worried. Which people? The board members you told about my abandonment issues? Her fork clattered against her plate. Peyton talked to you. Did you think he wouldn't? Did you think I wouldn't find out how you used my parents' death against me? Sarah leaned forward, voice low. I presented relevant concerns about leadership qualities. That's all. You betrayed my confidence. You took the most painful part of my life and weaponized it. I did what was necessary for Meridian's future. No, I said, my voice steady despite the anger churning inside me. You did what was necessary for Sarah's future. Don't pretend this is about the company. She studied me, calculation replacing pretense. What do you want, Tinsley? A bigger role in the merger? A promotion? Name it, and we can move past this unpleasantness. The casual offer stunned me. She thought I could be bought off, my dignity traded for a title. I want you to withdraw from the Westridge merger, I said. The numbers are fabricated and you know it. Sarah laughed, the sound brittle. That's not happening. The merger proceeds next week after my engagement party. Then I'll take what I've found to the board. With what evidence? The board trusts me, not the emotionally compromised executive who's clearly bitter about losing a promotion. She was right, and we both knew it. I'd need irrefutable proof to overcome the narrative she'd created. This isn't you, Tinsley, she continued, her voice softening. We've been friends for 12 years. Are you really willing to throw that away over a job title? This isn't about the title. It's about you using our friendship to advance yourself while systematically undermining me. That's not... How long? I interrupted. How long have you been planning this? Something shifted in her eyes, a flicker of truth breaking through the performance. Since the Harrington acquisition, she admitted. When you got the credit for the deal, I helped structure. 3 years. She'd been plotting this for 3 years, all while being my maid of honor, my confidant, my supposed best friend. "I never took credit for your work," I said quietly. "I always acknowledged your contribution. In private, but the board saw you as the rising star. I was just supporting cast." The raw jealousy in her voice was almost shocking. All this time, while I'd trusted her completely, she'd been tallying perceived slights and planning her revenge. "We're done here." I stood up, throwing cash on the table for my untouched meal. "Tinsley, wait." She grabbed my wrist. "Don't do anything you'll regret. My father can make one phone call and end your career anywhere in this industry." I pulled my arm away. "Threats now? At least we're finally being honest." Outside, the cool night air did nothing to calm the storm inside me. I walked aimlessly, eventually finding myself at a small park where Sarah and I used to eat lunch when we were both starting out. Before titles and corner offices mattered, before she decided I was competition instead of family. My phone buzzed with a text from Reggie. How did it go? I called him instead of texting back. When he answered, the concern in his voice broke something in me. I told him everything: Sarah's admission, her threats, my helplessness. "Where are you?" he asked when I finished. "Riverside Park." "Stay there. I'm coming to get you." 20 minutes later, his car pulled up. I got in without a word, exhaustion suddenly overwhelming me. "My place is closer," he said. "I'll make coffee and we can figure this out." His apartment was exactly what I expected. Minimalist, orderly, with overflowing bookshelves, the only sign of personality. He made coffee while I sank onto his couch. "She's been planning this for years," I said, staring into the mug he handed me. "Everything was calculated." "Then we need to be equally calculated," he replied, sitting beside me. "Sarah's right about one thing. You need irrefutable evidence to take to the board, which I don't have." "Not yet," he hesitated, "but I might know how to get it." I looked up. "How?" "The engagement party? Bradley, Sarah's fiancé. He works in Westridge's finance department." "So?" "So I play golf with him occasionally. He's mentioned having concerns about some of the company's reporting practices." Hope flickered faintly. "You think he'd talk to us?" "To me, maybe, if I can get him alone at the party." "Which I'm not invited to." Reggie's expression turned determined. "Then we get you in another way, as my +1. Sarah would spot me immediately." "Not if you're working behind the scenes. I go as a guest, you come as staff. The country club is hiring extra servers for the event." The audacity of the plan jolted me out of my despair. "You want me to pose as a server at Sarah's engagement party?" "It gets you in the room. It gives us a chance to find proof." It was risky, potentially humiliating, and absolutely not what a former CEO designate should be doing. It was also our only shot. "Okay," I said, newfound determination replacing defeat. "Let's do it." Reggie smiled, relief evident in his expression. "There she is. I was worried we'd lost you." "Lost me?" The Tinsley who never backs down from a challenge. His hand covered mine briefly. The one I've always admired. The unexpected touch, the sincerity in his voice, it cut through my emotional armor in a way I wasn't prepared for. For the first time in days, I felt something beyond anger and betrayal. I felt hope. "Keep your head down and don't make eye contact with the guests." The catering manager adjusted my bow tie with brisk efficiency. "Water glasses stay full, empty plates disappear quickly. Questions?" "No, ma'am." I balanced the tray of champagne flutes, feeling ridiculous in the server's uniform. The black pants were too long, the white shirt too tight across my shoulders. "Good. The first guests arrive in 20 minutes." She moved on to the next server, leaving me alone with my nerves. I'd spent my career climbing to the executive floor, and here I was, back in a service job like during college. The irony wasn't lost on me, but desperate times called for desperate measures, and I was definitely desperate. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Reggie. "Just arrived. Remember the plan? Be careful." The plan seemed simple enough. I'd work the party, staying invisible to Sarah while listening for useful information. Meanwhile, Reggie would corner Bradley and probe for Westridge's financial irregularities. We'd meet at midnight in the coat check room to compare notes. Simple except for the knot of anxiety in my stomach. If Sarah spotted me, my career wouldn't just be derailed, it would be obliterated. The Westridge Country Club ballroom filled quickly. Board members mingled with executives, champagne flowing freely. I kept my gaze lowered, moving through the crowd with practiced invisibility. "Champagne, sir?" I offered to an older man I recognized as Sarah's father. He took a glass without looking at me. "Telling you, once this merger goes through, we'll have salvaged the situation completely," he was saying to another board member. "Meridian's client list alone covers our shortfall." I lingered, pretending to arrange my tray. "The SEC inquiry won't matter by then?" the other man asked. "Not once we've consolidated assets. The timing is tight, but more champagne over here, please." A sharp voice cut through my eavesdropping. I turned to find Valerie, Sarah's friend from college, staring at me with narrowed eyes. I nodded and moved away, pulse racing. SEC inquiry? What shortfall needed salvaging? Across the room, I spotted Reggie chatting with Bradley near the bar. Bradley looked uncomfortable, tugging at his collar repeatedly. Reggie caught my eye briefly, giving an almost imperceptible nod. For the next hour, I circulated carefully, collecting fragments of conversations. The picture emerging was disturbing. Westridge wasn't just cooking their books. They were under preliminary investigation by the SEC. The merger with Meridian wasn't a strategic partnership. It was a lifeline for a drowning company. And Sarah knew. She had to know. I was refilling water glasses at a table of Meridian board members when I heard my name. "Shame about Tinsley," one of them was saying. "She had potential." "Sarah made the right call bringing her concerns to us," another replied. "Can you imagine if we'd announced Tinsley as CEO, only to have her fall apart during the merger?" Still, using her personal tragedy against her seems harsh. Business isn't about being nice, it's about results. And Sarah delivers results. I gripped the water pitcher so tightly my knuckles turned white. "Stay invisible," I reminded myself. "The mission matters more than your pride." At 11:30, I slipped away to the restroom, needing a moment to collect myself. I splashed cold water on my face, breathing deeply. The door swung open. Sarah walked in, radiant in a silver gown. Our eyes met in the mirror. Time stopped. "Tinsley?" Her shock quickly transformed into cold fury. "What the hell are you doing here?" I straightened, abandoning all pretense. "Gathering evidence that you're knowingly merging Meridian with a company under SEC investigation." "You're insane." She glanced toward the door. "And trespassing. I'm calling security." "Go ahead, I'll tell them, and everyone at this party, exactly what I've learned tonight." Sarah's hand froze halfway to her clutch. "You're bluffing. Westridge is using Meridian to cover financial irregularities. Your father practically admitted it to another board member." Something flickered in her eyes. Not guilt, but calculation. "You don't understand what you're talking about." "I understand perfectly. You're sacrificing Meridian to save your future father-in-law's company." "I'm securing Meridian's future," she hissed. "Westridge has temporary cash flow issues, that's all. The merger benefits both companies. That's not what your fiancé thinks." Her eyes widened. "What?" "Bradley has concerns about Westridge's reporting practices. Seems he's been talking to Reggie about them." It was a gamble. I didn't know exactly what Bradley had told Reggie yet. But Sarah's reaction told me I'd hit a nerve. Bradley wouldn't... She stopped, uncertainty crossing her face for the first time. "Wouldn't what? Have a conscience? Unlike some people." Sarah stepped closer, voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "Listen carefully. You have exactly one chance to walk away from this. Leave now, keep your mouth shut, and I'll make sure you land somewhere decent after the merger. And if I don't, then I'll destroy you so thoroughly you won't even get hired as a real server." Her smile was glacial. "Your choice." The bathroom door opened again. Valerie entered, stopping short when she saw us. "Everything okay, Sarah?" she asked, eyes darting between us. "Fine," Sarah replied smoothly. "Just catching up with an old friend who crashed my engagement party. How pathetic is that?" Valerie's expression turned to disgusted pity. "Security's right outside if you need them." "That won't be necessary," I said, moving toward the door. "I was just leaving." Sarah caught my arm as I passed. "Remember what I said, Tinsley. Last chance." I pulled away and walked out, heart pounding. The plan was compromised. I needed to find Reggie immediately. I spotted him near the coat check, deep in conversation with Bradley. Their expressions were serious, heads bent close together. As I approached, Bradley handed Reggie what looked like a flash drive. "Tinsley," Reggie said when he saw me, alarm crossing his face. "What happened?" "Sarah saw me. We need to go. Now." Bradley looked between us, understanding dawning. "You're working together." "Bradley," I started, "whatever Sarah's told you about the merger." "I know," he interrupted. "I've known for months. That's why I gave Reggie this." He nodded at the flash drive. "It's everything. The real financials, emails about covering up the SEC inquiry, all of it." "Why would you help us?" I asked, confused. Bradley's expression hardened. "Because I'm not marrying someone who would sacrifice hundreds of jobs to save her future father-in-law's reputation." He glanced toward the ballroom. "Or who would use her best friend's deepest pain against her." Security guards appeared at the ballroom entrance, scanning the crowd. Sarah stood behind them, pointing in our direction. "Go," Bradley urged. "I'll stall them." Reggie grabbed my hand. "Side exit, now." As we slipped out into the night, I realized we'd just crossed a point of no return. Tomorrow, we'd take Bradley's evidence to the board, and Sarah's carefully constructed world would collapse. The thought should have brought satisfaction. Instead, I felt only a hollow certainty that the real battle was just beginning. "They've called an emergency board meeting for 9 a.m. Olive's voice crackled through my phone as I paced Reggie's living room. We'd spent the night analyzing Bradley's files, building an airtight case against the merger. "Did they say why?" I asked, though I already knew. Sarah would be scrambling to contain the damage. "No, but Sarah's been making calls all night. Whatever you did at that party has her spooked." I glanced at Reggie, who was organizing our presentation materials. "We'll be there. Make sure everyone attends." After hanging up, I sank onto Reggie's couch, exhaustion hitting me in waves. What if this backfires? What if they don't believe us? Reggie sat beside me, his shoulder touching mine. The evidence speaks for itself. Bradley's files show clear intent to defraud. Sarah will say I fabricated everything out of jealousy. Then we'll need to be better than that narrative. He hesitated. "Tinsley, I need to ask you something important." "What?" "When you walk into that boardroom, what do you want? Really want?" The question caught me off guard. "Justice, the truth exposed." "Is that all?" His eyes held mine. "Because if this is just about hurting Sarah the way she hurt you, it won't bring you peace." I looked away, uncomfortable with his perception. "You think I'm being vindictive. I think you're human, and I think you deserve better than letting revenge define you." His words settled heavily in my chest. What did I truly want? The CEO position back? Sarah's humiliation? Or something deeper, validation that I wasn't crazy, that my instincts had been right all along? "I want to protect Meridian," I finally said, "and I want to reclaim my reputation. The rest, I don't know." Reggie nodded, seeming satisfied with my answer. "Then let's focus on that." We arrived at Meridian 30 minutes early, finding Olive waiting in the lobby. Her expression was grim. "Sarah's already upstairs with the board," she said, "and she's brought her father." My stomach tightened. She's trying to intimidate them. It's working. Half the board looks terrified. We took the elevator in tense silence. As the doors opened on the executive floor, Reggie squeezed my hand briefly. "Remember why we're here." The boardroom fell silent as we entered. Sarah sat at the head of the table, my rightful place, with her father beside her. Her smile was brittle when she saw me. "Tinsley, this is a closed meeting." "I've invited her," said Chairman Elliott, surprising me. Given the serious nature of the allegations, all parties should be present. Sarah's composure slipped momentarily. "What allegations?" "Perhaps you should tell us," I said, setting my laptop on the table. "About Westridge's SEC investigation, or the fabricated client numbers, or how this merger is actually a bailout for your future father-in-law's failing company." Murmurs rippled around the table. Sarah's father leaned forward, his voice cold. "Those are slanderous accusations." "They're documented facts," Reggie countered, distributing folders to each board member. "Everything is in those packets, including emails between Westridge executives discussing how to hide their financial problems until the merger is complete." "This is absurd," Sarah laughed, but I could see the calculation in her eyes. Tinsley is clearly fabricating evidence because she's bitter about losing the CEO position. "The evidence came from Bradley," I said quietly. Sarah froze. What? Your fiancé provided these files. He's been documenting Westridge's deception for months. The color drained from her face. That's not possible. He was at the country club last night, Reggie added. He gave us everything. Sarah's father stood abruptly. This meeting is over. Our legal team will address these baseless claims. Sit down, Richard, Chairman Elliott said firmly. No one's leaving until we understand exactly what's happening. For the next 30 minutes, Reggie and I walked the board through the evidence. The emails were damning. Explicit discussions about hiding debt, inflating client numbers, and using Meridian's resources to cover Westridge's shortfalls. With each revelation, Sarah's expression hardened. When we finished, Chairman Elliott removed his glasses, looking troubled. Sarah, how do you explain this? It's clearly been manipulated, she insisted. Tinsley has technical skills. She could easily have altered these documents. The metadata proves authenticity, Reggie countered, and Bradley is prepared to testify to their validity. Bradley is confused, Sarah's father interjected. He misunderstood normal business discussions. Then explain this email, I said, projecting a message onto the screen. From you to Sarah, dated 3 months ago. The SEC inquiry is gaining momentum. We need to accelerate the Meridian merger before our Q3 filings. The room went silent. Sarah and her father exchanged glances. You knew, I said, looking directly at Sarah. You knew Westridge was in trouble and you orchestrated this merger to save them, regardless of the cost to Meridian. I was protecting both companies, she replied, her voice steady despite her obvious distress. Yes, Westridge has cash flow issues, but the merger still makes strategic sense. Not when one partner is deliberately deceiving the other, Chairman Elliott said. Sarah, I'm deeply disappointed. What about her? Sarah pointed at me, desperation creeping into her voice. She's emotionally unstable. I told you about her history, her abandonment issues. Yes, let's talk about that, I interrupted, surprising myself with my calm. You told the board I was emotionally unstable because my parents died when I was 19. You used my deepest pain I shared with you in confidence, to undermine me professionally, Sarah faltered. I was concerned about your ability to handle pressure. No, you were eliminating competition. I looked around the table. I've never hidden my past. My parents' death shaped me, but it didn't break me. It taught me resilience, determination, and the importance of integrity, qualities a CEO should have. Several board members nodded. Chairman Elliott's expression softened. The real question, I continued, is what kind of leader deliberately sabotages a colleague using personal trauma? What kind of CEO knowingly enters a fraudulent merger? Sarah stood suddenly, her composure cracking. You have no idea what leadership requires. Sometimes difficult decisions must be made. I was saving 2 companies. You were saving yourself, I replied quietly, at everyone else's expense. This is ridiculous, Sarah's father snapped. We're leaving. The merger agreement is signed. It's too late to stop it. Actually, Chairman Elliott said, there's a material disclosure clause. If Westridge knowingly withheld information about an SEC investigation, the agreement is void. Sarah's face crumpled. You can't do this. It's already done, Chairman Elliott replied. The board will need to vote, but I think our direction is clear. He turned to me. Tinsley, would you and Reggie give us the room? We need to discuss next steps. As we stood to leave, Sarah grabbed my arm. You've ruined everything, she hissed. Are you happy now? I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt an unexpected wave of pity. No, Sarah, I'm not happy, but I am free. In the hallway, surrounded by the curious stares of colleagues, I finally allowed myself to breathe. Whatever happened next, the truth was out. I had reclaimed my voice, my dignity, and my future. And for now, that was enough. The board deliberated for 3 hours. I spent them in my office, alternating between nervous pacing and staring out the window at the city skyline. Reggie brought coffee. Olive stopped by with encouragement. Rosalind texted updates from the executive floor. But mostly, I sat alone with my thoughts. When my phone finally rang, Chairman Elliott's voice was formal. The boardroom, please. 5 minutes. I smoothed my blazer, checked my reflection in the darkened computer screen, and took a deep breath. Whatever their decision, I'd fought with integrity. That would have to be enough. The boardroom had emptied except for Chairman Elliott and 2 other members. No sign of Sarah or her father. Sit down, Tinsley. Chairman Elliot gestured to a chair, not at the head of the table, I noticed, but to his right. We've made several decisions today. I nodded, keeping my expression neutral despite my racing heart. First, we've voided the merger agreement with Westridge. Our legal team is already preparing the necessary documentation. Relief flooded through me. That's the right call. Second, we've accepted Sarah's resignation effective immediately. I blinked, surprised it had happened so quickly. I see. Which brings us to you. He folded his hands on the table. Your actions in uncovering this deception were commendable. However, the manner in which you gathered information, infiltrating a private event, working with a Westridge insider, raises questions about judgment. My stomach sank. They weren't giving me the CEO position back. That said, he continued, your dedication to Meridian's well-being is unquestionable, and your presentation today demonstrated exactly the kind of leadership we need. He slid a folder across the table. Inside was an offer letter, not for CEO, but for Chief Strategy Officer, a newly created position. We're restructuring our leadership approach, he explained. The CEO position will remain open while we conduct a proper search. In the meantime, you'll lead our strategic initiatives, reporting directly to the board. I studied the offer. The compensation was excellent, the responsibilities substantial, but it wasn't what I'd been promised. I appreciate the offer, I said carefully, but I have a counter-proposal. Chairman Elliot raised an eyebrow. We're listening. I accept the CSO position with one condition. I met his gaze steadily. I want to be considered in the CEO search, on equal footing with external candidates. No prejudice based on Sarah's claims about my emotional stability. The board members exchanged glances. That's reasonable, Chairman Elliot finally said, but I should be transparent. We're considering a significant restructuring. The CEO role may look very different by the time we fill it. I understand. I just want a fair shot. Then we have a deal. He extended his hand and I shook it firmly. As I left the boardroom, a strange lightness filled me. I hadn't gotten everything I wanted, but I'd secured a path forward, on my terms. Reggie was waiting by the elevators. Well? CSO, I said. Not CEO, but a seat at the table. His smile was warm. They'd be fools not to see what you're capable of. Thank you, I said, suddenly overwhelmed by all he'd risked to help me. For everything. Partners look out for each other. His eyes held mine a moment too long, and I felt that same flutter from his apartment. The elevator doors opened, revealing Sarah. She was carrying a box of personal items, her expression stony. We all froze. Excuse me, she said coldly, trying to step around us. I should have let her pass, should have taken the high road, but something made me reach out and stop the elevator door from closing. Sarah. She looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time in months. Behind her anger, I glimpsed something unexpected. Fear. What do you want, Tinsley? Come to gloat? No. I took a deep breath. I wanted to say I'm sorry it ended this way. She laughed bitterly. Right. You destroyed my career and my engagement, but you're sorry. Bradley made his own choice, and you destroyed your career when you decided to lie to the board. Is that what helps you sleep at night? Nothing helps me sleep at night, I admitted. Not after learning my best friend of 12 years saw me as nothing but competition. Something flickered in her eyes. Regret, maybe, or just calculation. We were never friends, Tinsley. We were two ambitious women in a world that only makes room for one of us at the top. That's not true. I never saw it as a zero-sum game. Then you were naive. She shifted her box. Congratulations on your victory. Enjoy it while it lasts. As she walked away, I felt Reggie's hand on my shoulder. You okay? Yeah, I said, surprised to find it was true. I think I am. Back in my office, I found Olive waiting with a bottle of champagne, the same expensive brand I'd ordered for my ill-fated celebration. Too soon? She asked, seeing my expression. Actually, perfect timing. I grabbed paper cups from my desk. But let's invite Roslyn and Peyton too, and anyone else who stood by me. As Olive went to gather them, I stood alone in my office, the same office where this journey had begun. I'd lost a friend but gained clarity. I hadn't reclaimed the CEO title, but I'd reclaimed something more important. my sense of self-worth. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was Bradley. Meeting with SEC investigators tomorrow. Doing the right thing, finally. Thank you for showing me it's possible. I smiled, setting the phone down as my colleagues began filtering in, Reggie among them. He caught my eye across the room, raising an imaginary glass and a private toast. Olive handed me a cup of champagne. Speech? I looked around at these people. Not just colleagues, but allies who had seen my value when I doubted it myself. To truth, I said, raising my cup, and to the battles that show us who we really are. As we drank, I realized something profound. I'd spent 12 years trying to prove I was enough, to Meridian, to Sarah, to myself. But standing here now, I finally understood. I had always been enough. The only person who couldn't see it was me. And that, more than any title or corner office, was the real victory.
I still remember the sound of my keys hitting the floor. Not a clatter or jingle, but a dull thud against the carpet that somehow echoed through my entire body. Funny how your brain photographs these moments. The keys splayed out like a crime scene, my wedding ring catching the light from our bedroom down the hall. Our bedroom, where my husband and my best friend were having sex. I stood frozen in the entryway of our home, the renovated craftsman that Alex and I had poured 4 years of weekends into. The home where Casey had helped us paint the kitchen that perfect shade of sage green. Drinking wine on the floor as we debated crown molding. The moans filtered down the hallway, unmistakable. Casey's voice, a voice I knew from 15 years of late-night calls and shared secrets, now twisted into something that burned my ears. "You can't tell her," she was saying between heavy breaths. "Promise me, Alex." I should have screamed, should have stormed down that hallway and caught them in the act. Instead, I bent down, picked up my keys with trembling fingers, and backed out the front door, closing it with excruciating care. In my car, I sat with my forehead pressed against the steering wheel, my breath coming in short, painful bursts. My phone buzzed, a text from Casey. "Still on for brunch tomorrow. Can't wait to hear about your meeting." The meeting, the promotion I'd been working toward for 3 years. The reason I'd come home early, wanting to share my news with Alex first. I drove to a hotel that night, paid with cash, sat on the edge of a bed with scratchy sheets, staring at the wall until sunrise stained the cheap curtains pink. When I finally returned home the next day, they'd covered their tracks. The sheets were changed, the bedroom window cracked to release any lingering scent of betrayal. Alex kissed my cheek, asked about my meeting with practiced concern. I didn't get it, I lied, watching his face. They went with someone else. "Oh, babe." His arms around me felt like restraints. "Their loss. You'll get the next one." I nodded against his chest, wondering if Casey's perfume was embedded in his skin, the same perfume I'd helped her pick out last Christmas. 3 days passed. I moved through our house like a ghost, cataloguing evidence of their deception. The shower used at odd times, Alex's sudden interest in his phone, Casey's too bright smile when she stopped by with coffee, her eyes never quite meeting mine. "You seem off, Daisy," she said, stirring cream into her cup. "Is it still the promotion thing? Because honestly, you're too good for that place anyway." I studied her face, the face I'd known since college, the face that had cried at my wedding. "Just tired," I said. "Well, perk up," she laughed, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. "Life's too short to waste on disappointments." The words hung between us, and something in her tone, a hint of dismissal, of superiority, cracked something open inside me. That night, I waited until Alex was asleep before slipping into his home office. His laptop password was still my birthday. The irony wasn't lost on me. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for until I found it. Emails, dozens of them, stretching back 7 months. "Miss you already. D still suspects nothing. Meeting tomorrow." Last night was incredible, getting harder to wait between our times. Sometimes I think we should just tell her. She's so wrapped up in work anyway. Maybe she wouldn't even care. My stomach lurched, but I kept reading, scrolling through their digital affair until I found something else, Something unexpected. Casey had been feeding Alex information about my company, Meridian Tech, where she served as CFO. Insider details about restructuring, about positions opening before they were announced, about the promotion I was being considered for. Make sure Daisy doesn't get that director position. We need someone more flexible in that role for what's coming. I've already spoken to the board about concerns with her vision. Trust me on this. My hands went numb. The betrayal wasn't just personal, it was professional. Casey had actively sabotaged my career while sleeping with my husband. I closed the laptop, my mind suddenly terrifyingly clear. The hurt was still there, a gaping wound in my chest, but something else was rising through the pain. Something cold and focused. Casey's words from 3 days ago replayed in my head. Life's too short to waste on disappointments. She was right about one thing. I'd been disappointed in my marriage, in my friendship, in my career. But disappointment was passive. What I felt now was anything but. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app, transferring half of our joint savings to my personal account. Then I texted Casey. "You're right, life is too short. Brunch tomorrow. I need your advice on something important." Her reply came instantly. "Always here for you. Usual place at 11. I smiled at my phone, the expression feeling foreign on my face. Casey had no idea what was coming. Neither did Alex. But I did. And for the first time in days, I slept without dreams. The morning of brunch, I woke up with purpose burning through my veins. Alex had already left for his client meeting, another lie I'd added to my growing collection. I dressed with deliberate care. A cream blouse Casey had always envied, hair loose the way Alex preferred it, armor of a different kind. The restaurant was our usual spot, a sun-drenched corner cafe where the mimosas came in crystal flutes and the waitstaff knew us by name. Casey was already there, tapping at her phone, her sleek dark hair pulled into a perfect low bun. When she saw me, her smile was dazzling. There she is. She stood to hug me, her expensive perfume wrapping around me like a noose. "God, you look amazing. New blouse?" "Old favorite," I said, returning her smile with one that felt stretched across my face. "Thanks for meeting me." "Always." She signaled for mimosas before leaning forward. "So, what's this important thing you needed advice on? Is it about the promotion? Because I could talk to..." "It's about trust, actually." I kept my voice light, watching her face. "How do you know when you can really trust someone?" Something flickered behind her eyes, so brief I might have missed it if I hadn't been looking. "That's philosophical for brunch," she laughed. "But I guess it depends on the situation. Work, relationship?" "Both, maybe." I accepted the mimosa the server placed before me, not drinking. "I've been thinking a lot about loyalty lately." Casey took a long sip of her drink. "Loyalty's complicated. Sometimes what looks like disloyalty is actually protection." "Protection," I repeated, tasting the word. "Interesting perspective." "I just mean sometimes people make choices that seem questionable, but they're actually trying to protect someone they care about." She was speaking carefully now, measuring each word. "Like when a friend undermines your career to protect you from success." The word slipped out, sharper than I'd intended. Casey's face froze. "What are you talking about?" I leaned back, suddenly tired of the performance. "I know, Casey, about you and Alex, about what you did to block my promotion." Her face drained of color. "Daisy, don't." I held up my hand. I saw the emails, all of them. The silence between us stretched, taut and dangerous. Around us, the restaurant continued its cheerful weekend buzz, oblivious to our implosion. "It wasn't what you think," she finally said, voice low. "Alex and I, it just happened. And the promotion, I was trying to protect you from a bad situation. The company's restructuring. That position is being eliminated in 6 months." "Bullshit." The word felt good on my tongue. "The board approved a 3-year budget for that department last quarter. I prepared the financial projections myself." Casey's eyes narrowed slightly. How would you know what the board? Because unlike you, I actually do my job instead of sleeping with my best friend's husband. I smiled, the expression feeling foreign on my face. You've always underestimated me, Casey. It's your biggest mistake. She reached for my hand. I pulled away. Daisy, please. Let me explain. It's complicated. No, it's actually very simple. I stood, dropping cash on the table. You betrayed me. Both of you did. But here's what you should know. I got the promotion anyway. Her head snapped up. What? They called yesterday. Director of Strategic Operations, effective immediately. Funny thing about going behind someone's back, sometimes it backfires. The shock on her face was almost worth everything. Almost. Congratulations, she managed, voice strained. That's great news. It is, I agreed. Especially the part where my first project is auditing the executive expense accounts, including yours. Casey's face went from pale to ashen. You wouldn't. 7 months ago, I wouldn't have, but people change, don't they? I shouldered my bag. Oh, and don't worry about telling Alex. I'll handle that conversation myself. As I walked away, she called after me. Daisy, wait! You don't understand what you're doing. I didn't turn back. At home, I packed methodically. Clothes, important documents, the few family heirlooms I couldn't bear to leave behind. I'd already rented a furnished apartment across town, paid 3 months in advance. As I zipped my suitcase, my phone buzzed with texts from Casey. Please call me. This isn't just about us. There are things you don't know. You're making a dangerous mistake. I blocked her number. The last thing I did before leaving was place my wedding ring on Alex's pillow with a note. Ask Casey about the Meridian audit. She can explain why I'm gone. As I drove away from the house we'd built together, I felt strangely hollow. The rage that had propelled me through brunch was cooling into something harder, more focused. Casey's warning echoed in my mind. You don't understand what you're doing. She was wrong. For the first time in years, I understood exactly what I was doing. My phone rang. A number I didn't recognize. I almost ignored it until I saw the area code. Meridian's corporate headquarters. Daisy speaking. Ms. Hamilton. A man's voice, unfamiliar but authoritative. This is Carlos Reyes from the board. We need to meet. Today, if possible. It's about Casey Fernandez. I pulled over, heart pounding. I'm listening. Not over the phone, he said quietly. But you should know. You're not the only one she's betrayed. The coffee shop Carlos chose was deliberately nondescript. A chain store in a strip mall where nobody would look twice at 2 people hunched over laptops. I arrived early, claiming a corner table with my back to the wall. Old habits from childhood. Always know your exits. Carlos arrived precisely on time. A tall man with salt and pepper hair, and the kind of expensive watch that people who understand wealth never draw attention to. I recognized him from company photos, but had never spoken to him directly. Board members didn't typically interact with people at my level. Thank you for meeting me, he said, settling across from me without offering a handshake. His eyes scanned the room before landing on mine. I apologize for the cloak and dagger, but discretion is essential. Why? I asked, not bothering with pleasantries. What has Casey done? He opened his laptop, turning it toward me. Casey has been systematically siphoning company resources for the past 18 months. We're talking millions in misappropriated funds, falsified reports to shareholders, and strategic information sold to competitors. The documents on screen showed transaction records, email exchanges with redacted names, and financial discrepancies highlighted in angry red. That's not possible, I said, though even as the words left my mouth, I knew they were false. Casey built Meridian's financial structure. She's been with the company since the beginning. Which made her betrayal all the more devastating, Carlos said quietly, and all the more difficult to detect. I stared at the screen, pieces clicking into place. The audit I've been assigned is a cover. We needed someone with your financial acumen who wasn't part of Casey's inner circle. Someone who would notice the discrepancies without being complicit. He paused. What we didn't anticipate was your personal connection to the situation. My laugh was bitter. You mean you didn't know she was sleeping with my husband while sabotaging my career? His expression remained neutral. That complicates things. It simplifies them, I countered, something cold settling in my chest. Tell me what you need me to do. For the next hour, Carlos outlined the plan. I would proceed with the audit, focusing on specific accounts Casey controlled. I would report directly to Carlos and 2 other board members, bypassing normal channels. The goal was to gather enough evidence to remove Casey and pursue legal action without tipping her off. She has allies throughout the company, Carlos warned. Trust no one except me and these 2 board members. He slid a paper across the table with 2 names. I memorized them before handing it back. What about Alex? I asked. My husband. Is he involved? Carlos hesitated. We don't have evidence linking him directly to the financial improprieties, but their relationship suggests he may know more than he's letting on. I nodded, unsurprised. Alex worked in commercial real estate, no direct connection to Meridian, but he'd always been unusually interested in my work, in Casey's work. One more thing, Carlos said, closing his laptop. Casey knows something's happening. She's been making moves to protect herself, including this. He showed me his phone. An email from Casey to the entire board, sent an hour ago, expressing grave concerns about my emotional stability and professional judgment following personal difficulties. My hands curled into fists under the table. She's trying to discredit me before I can expose her. Yes, and it might work if we don't move quickly. Carlos's eyes met mine. The question is, can you do this? Given everything, I thought about Casey's face at brunch, about Alex's arms around me while he lied, about 15 years of friendship and 7 years of marriage, all built on sand. I can do it, I said. I want to do it. Back at my new apartment, I spread out the files Carlos had given me, creating a timeline of Casey's activities. The pattern was sophisticated, but, once you knew what to look for, obvious. Small discrepancies compounding over time, money moving through shell companies, strategic decisions that benefited competitors, who then hired consulting firms linked to those same shell companies. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. We need to talk, please. Alex. My finger hovered over the block button, but something stopped me. If he was involved with Casey's schemes, keeping a line open might prove useful. Nothing to talk about, I replied. I know about the audit. Casey told me everything. You're making a mistake, Daisy. These people will destroy you. My heart stuttered. What people? The board isn't being straight with you. There's more going on. Meet me. Just once. For your own safety. I stared at the message, mind racing. Was this manipulation, or did Alex actually know something I didn't? Carlos had been forthcoming, but boards protected themselves first. Always. Before I could decide, another text came through. Casey isn't who you think she is, but neither is Carlos. Check the Artemis files before you go any further. Artemis files. I'd never heard of them. I started typing a demand for explanation when my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw a woman I didn't recognize. Tall, black, with close-cropped hair and intense eyes. She held up a Meridian ID badge. Zariah Knight, Information Security. Ms. Hamilton, she called through the door. I need to speak with you about Casey Fernandez and about what Carlos Reyes isn't telling you. My phone buzzed again with Alex's message. Don't trust anyone who comes looking for you, especially not from Meridian. I stood frozen between the door and my phone, suddenly aware that I had stepped into something far more dangerous than a love triangle or financial fraud. Whatever game was being played, I was no longer just a pawn. I was a player, and it was time to make my move. I opened the door with my phone in hand, finger hovering over the emergency call button. Up close, Zariah looked even more intense, the kind of person who never needed to raise her voice to command a room. "May I come in?" she asked, her voice low and measured. "That depends on why you're here." She glanced down the hallway. "I'd rather not discuss sensitive company information in a public space." I hesitated, then stepped aside. Self-preservation warred with curiosity, and curiosity won. Once inside, Zoraya declined to sit, instead pacing the small living room with controlled energy. "I'll be direct. Carlos Reyes is using you." "Interesting opener," I said, keeping the door unlocked behind me. "Especially coming from someone who works for Casey." "I don't work for Casey. I work for Meridian's Security Division, which reports directly to the board." She stopped pacing. "The same board that's currently split into warring factions, with you caught in the middle." I crossed my arms. "Prove it." Zoraya pulled out her phone, tapped a few times and handed it to me. On screen was an email thread between Carlos and someone named Marcus discussing the Hamilton situation. "She's perfect, motivated by personal vendetta, skilled enough to trace the accounts, and expendable if things go sideways. The Fernandez problem solves itself, and we maintain plausible deniability." My stomach clenched. "This could be fabricated." "It could be," Zoraya agreed. "Just like the evidence Carlos showed you about Casey could be manipulated. The question is, who do you trust?" "No one," I said automatically. "Not anymore." Something like approval flickered across her face. "Smart. Trust the evidence, not the people presenting it." She nodded toward my laptop. "The Artemis files are encrypted financial records from the last 2 years. Casey created them as insurance. They show who's really been embezzling from Meridian, and how exactly would I access these files?" "You're the financial expert. You tell me where someone like Casey would hide her most valuable insurance policy." I thought about it, mind racing through possibilities. Somewhere hidden but accessible, somewhere tied to a memory or personal significance that only she would recognize. Zoraya nodded. "The annual reports. Check the supplementary data appendices for the last 8 quarters. The password pattern would be something meaningful to her." I turned to my laptop, pulling up Meridian's financial database. My credentials still worked. Either they hadn't gotten around to locking me out, or they wanted me to keep digging. Neither option was particularly comforting. The supplementary appendices were massive data dumps, hundreds of pages of numbers that regulators required but almost no one actually read. Perfect hiding place. In each one, I found a small embedded file with an innocuous name, A1, A2, and so on. "Artemis," I murmured, "the goddess of the hunt." The password took 3 attempts. Not Casey's birthday or her mother's name, but the street address of the coffee shop where we'd first met in college. A place only I would remember the significance of. The files opened, revealing transaction records, board meeting minutes, and email exchanges. As I scanned through them, my breath caught. "This shows Carlos and 3 other board members orchestrating the embezzlement," I said, scrolling through damning evidence. "They've been using Casey's department as cover, manipulating records, and..." I stopped, seeing a familiar name. "Alex, my husband is listed here as an external resource." "What does that mean?" Zoraya's expression softened slightly, the first crack in her professional veneer. "He's been helping them launder money through real estate deals, properties purchased, renovated with company funds, then sold with the profits going to offshore accounts. Our house, the renovations we'd done, the clients Alex was always meeting. It all clicked into horrible focus. Casey found out," I said slowly, the truth dawning on me. "That's why they wanted me to investigate her. They're setting her up to take the fall." "Yes, and now they're setting you up too." Zoraya checked her watch. "We don't have much time. Carlos will realize I've contacted you soon." "Why are you helping me? What's your stake in this?" She met my eyes directly. "Casey saved my job last year when I was being pushed out. I owe her. But more importantly, I believe in doing what's right. This company has been my life for 8 years. I won't watch it be destroyed by corrupt leadership. My phone buzzed again. Alex calling this time. I let it go to voicemail. What's the play here? I asked Soraya. If I can't trust Carlos or the board, and Casey's being framed, where does that leave me? In a unique position. You have access to both sides now. You can continue working with Carlos, feeding him what he expects, while we gather enough evidence to take to the authorities. But we need to move carefully. I raised an eyebrow. You need allies, Daisy. Right now, I'm offering to be one. My voicemail notification pinged. Alex's message was brief. They're watching your apartment. Get out now. As if on cue, my phone lit up with a text from Carlos. Meeting tomorrow, 9 a.m. My office. Bring everything you've found so far. I looked at Soraya. If I do this, play double agent, I'm putting myself at risk from all sides. Casey betrayed me personally. Carlos is using me professionally. My husband has been lying about everything. True, she said simply, but you're already in the middle of this. The question is whether you want to be a pawn or a player. I closed the laptop, decision made. I need to see Casey tonight. Can you arrange that? Soraya nodded, already typing on her phone. Pack a bag. Don't use credit cards or your car. And Daisy? Her eyes met mine. From this point forward, trust your instincts. They're the only thing not compromised. As I threw essentials into a backpack, I realized I'd crossed a line. There would be no returning to my old life, no matter how this ended. The thought should have terrified me. Instead, I felt strangely liberated. Soraya drove with the focused intensity of someone used to crisis management, taking a circuitous route through the city, while I huddled in the passenger seat, watching for tails. Where are we meeting Casey? I asked, as we crossed into an industrial district I barely recognized. Neutral ground, a restaurant owned by a friend who values privacy. Zoraya's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. Casey's already there. The restaurant turned out to be a small Vietnamese place wedged between a warehouse and an auto body shop. Inside, the handful of tables were empty except for one in the back corner, where Casey sat nursing a glass of something amber. She looked up as we approached, her expression cycling through surprise, relief, and wariness. Gone was the polished executive I'd seen at brunch. This Casey looked exhausted, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, her face bare of makeup. You came, she said, eyes fixed on me as Soraya took a position near the door. I wasn't sure you would. I slid into the booth across from her. I'm not here for reconciliation. I know. She pushed a folder across the table. I'm here to give you this, the complete Artemis files, including evidence I haven't had time to upload. Bank statements, recorded conversations, everything you need to bring Carlos down. I left the folder untouched. Why should I believe anything from you? You slept with my husband. You tried to sabotage my career. Casey flinched. I deserve that, but right now, we have bigger problems than our personal history. That's where you're wrong, I said, leaning forward. Our personal history is exactly the problem. You don't betray someone for 7 months and then expect them to trust you in a crisis. I'm not asking for trust. I'm asking for cooperation. Her voice dropped. They're going to kill me, Daisy. The bluntness of it hit me like a physical blow. What? Carlos and his faction. They've already tried once. A brake malfunction on my car last week. That's when I knew I had to accelerate my timeline. She took a shaky breath. I never meant for you to get involved. When I found out what they were doing, I started gathering evidence on my own. Then they somehow discovered I was onto them, and suddenly, you were being promoted into a position designed to set you up as their scapegoat. And Alex, I forced myself to ask the question I'd been avoiding. How deep is he in this? Casey's expression softened with something dangerously close to pity. He's been working with them for years, before you were even married. It's how we met. He approached me at a company event, started feeding me information. I thought he was just a charming guy with insider knowledge. By the time I realized what was happening, I was compromised. So sleeping with him was what? Your cover? The bitterness in my voice could have stripped paint. It was a mistake, she said quietly. The worst I've ever made. Not just professionally, but... She looked down at her hands. You were my best friend. The only real thing in my life. I destroyed that, and I can't fix it. But I can try to keep you alive. Part of me wanted to walk out, to leave Casey to the mess she'd helped create. But the rational part of my brain, the part that had made me good at my job, recognized the truth when I heard it. Tell me everything, I said. From the beginning. For the next 30 minutes, Casey laid it out. How Carlos and his allies had been systematically looting the company for years, using increasingly complex financial maneuvers to hide their tracks. How Alex had been recruited early on to help with the real estate side of their money laundering. How she had discovered discrepancies in the books and started investigating privately. When they realized I was gathering evidence, they needed a distraction and a potential fall person, she explained. That's where you came in. The perfect patsy, the betrayed wife with financial expertise and a personal vendetta. And now they're getting nervous. The quarterly audit is coming up and there are too many loose ends. They need to clean house. She glanced at Zariah, who nodded confirmation. Starting with me, then you, then anyone else who knows too much. I finally pulled the folder toward me, flipping through documents that confirmed everything she'd said. What's your plan? Get this evidence to the SEC and FBI simultaneously. But we need to move fast, within the next 24 hours. After that... She left the sentence unfinished. My phone buzzed. A text from Carlos. Change of plans. Meeting tonight instead. 8 p.m. Non-negotiable. I showed it to Casey, whose face went pale. They're accelerating too. We're out of time. As if on cue, Zariah moved swiftly from her post by the door. We've got company. Black SUV just pulled up outside. Casey grabbed my wrist. There's a back exit through the kitchen. Zariah knows where to take you next. I'll create a diversion. Wait, I said, suddenly realizing what she was proposing. You can't... I got you into this. Let me get you out. Her eyes met mine, and for a moment I saw the Casey I'd known for 15 years. The friend who had held me through breakups and job losses, who had been my maid of honor, who I had trusted with everything. I'm sorry, Daisy, for all of it. She pressed something into my hand, a small USB drive. This has everything, including recorded conversations with Alex. Use it. Before I could respond, the front door opened. Casey shoved me toward the kitchen. Go. Now. Zariah pulled me through the swinging doors as I heard Casey call out, Carlos, what a surprise. Care for a drink? In the alley behind the restaurant, engine already running, waited a car I recognized instantly, Alex's Audi. And behind the wheel, looking grim and determined, sat my husband. Get in, he said. We need to talk. Are you insane? I hissed, backing away from the car. I'm not going anywhere with you. Alex's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. Daisy, please. We have maybe 30 seconds before Carlos's men come around that corner. Zariah's hand closed around my arm. He's right. We need to move. When I shot her a disbelieving look, she added, I don't trust him either, but right now he's our best option. A shout from inside the restaurant decided for me. I slid into the back seat, Zariah following, her body tense as a coiled spring. Alex accelerated the moment our doors closed, taking the first corner so sharply I had to brace against the seat. How did you find us? I demanded. I've been tracking Casey's movements for weeks, he said, eyes on the rearview mirror. When she suddenly changed her pattern tonight, I knew something was happening. You've been spying on your lover? How romantic. His jaw tightened. It's not what you think. It never is with you, is it? The anger I'd been suppressing erupted. Was anything real? Our marriage? The house? Or was I just convenient cover for your criminal activities? We're being followed, Zariah cut in, looking out the back window. Black SUV, 2 cars back. Alex swore under his breath, taking a sharp right down a narrow side street. Hold on. For the next 10 minutes, he navigated a maze, of alleys and side streets, his face a mask of concentration. I'd seen that expression before, when he was closing a difficult deal, when we were arguing, when he was lying. The familiarity of it made my chest ache. Finally, he pulled into an underground parking garage beneath an anonymous office building, driving to the lowest level before stopping in a dimly lit corner. "We should be safe here for a few minutes," he said, turning to face us. "Daisy, I know you have no reason to trust me." Understatement of the century. "But I'm trying to help you. I've been working with the FBI for the past 3 months. I laughed, the sound harsh in the confined space. "Right, you're a criminal informant now. How convenient." Instead of arguing, Alex reached into his jacket and pulled out a badge. Not a replica or a prop, but a genuine FBI consultant ID with his photo. Zariah took it, examining it with expert eyes before handing it back. "It's real." "I got in over my head," Alex said quietly. "Carlos approached me 4 years ago with what seemed like a legitimate investment opportunity. By the time I realized what was really happening, I was already implicated. When the FBI started investigating Meridian 6 months ago, they gave me a choice: cooperate or go to prison. And Casey," I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice, "was sleeping with her part of your cooperation agreement." Pain flashed across his face. "That was a mistake, the worst I've ever made. It started as a way to get information, then became something else. Something I'm not proud of." "Spare me the contrition," I snapped. "Casey's back there facing Carlos because of what you both did." "Casey's been playing all sides from the beginning," Alex countered. "Yes, she discovered Carlos's scheme, but she also used that knowledge to leverage her own position. She's been skimming from their operation for months." I turned to Zariah. "Is that true?" Her expression remained carefully neutral. "Casey's not innocent, but right now she's the lesser evil compared to Carlos. The FBI has been building a case against all of them," Alex continued. "But they need concrete evidence linking Carlos directly to the financial crimes. That's where you come in, with your expertise." "I'm not interested in being anyone else's pawn," I cut him off. "Not yours, not the FBI's, not Casey's." "Then what do you want, Daisy?" Alex asked, his voice softening. "Tell me and I'll help you get it." The question caught me off guard. What did I want? Revenge? Justice? My old life back? None of those seemed adequate anymore. "I want the truth," I finally said, "all of it, and I want to make my own decisions based on that truth." Alex nodded slowly. "Fair enough. The truth is, Carlos and his people are desperate. The FBI is closing in, and they're looking to clean house. Casey was first on their list, but you're a close second. The meeting Carlos scheduled for tonight is a trap. So what's the play?" Zariah asked. "We can't keep running." "We don't," I said, an idea forming. "We use their plan against them." I pulled out the USB drive Casey had given me. "We have evidence that could bring down Carlos and his entire operation, but we need to get it to the right people." "The FBI has an agent standing by," Alex said, "but we need to move fast." I studied my husband's face, the face I'd woken up to for 7 years, the face I'd thought I knew better than my own. Behind the familiar features was a stranger, and yet... "Why should I believe you're really working with the FBI? This could be another trap." "Because despite everything, I never stopped loving you," he said simply. "And I won't let them hurt you." The words hit me like a physical blow, not because I believed them, but because part of me wanted to. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Casey in custody. Carlos knows about the USB. Coming for you next." Z. Z? I showed the message to Zariah. "Not me," she said, suddenly alert. "Someone else." Alex checked his watch. "We're out of time. Carlos's meeting starts in an hour. We need to decide now. Run or fight." I thought about Casey, about the years of friendship before the betrayal, about Alex and the life we'd built on lies, about Carlos and his smug certainty that he could use me and discard me. "We fight," I said, gripping the USB drive. "But we do it my way." I turned to Zariah. Can you get us into Meridian headquarters undetected? A slow smile spread across her face. That's literally my job. Good. I faced Alex. Call your FBI contact. Tell them to be ready, but not to move until they hear from me. What are you planning? He asked, a note of wariness in his voice. Something Carlos won't expect, I said. I'm going to attend his meeting after all. Meridian's headquarters looked different at night. All sleek glass and strategic lighting, the company logo pulsing blue against the darkness like a heartbeat, or a warning. Zariah led us through a service entrance, using her security credentials to bypass the main desk. The skeleton night crew barely glanced our way as we moved through the building, Zariah's confident stride suggesting we belonged. Carlos will be in the executive conference room, she murmured, guiding us toward a service elevator. 7th floor. In the elevator, I caught my reflection in the polished metal doors, hair pulled back severely, eyes hard, mouth set in a determined line. I barely recognized myself. The room is wired for recording, Zariah explained as we ascended, but I can disable the official system. Your phone is set to record? I nodded, patting my jacket pocket where my phone was already running a recording app. The USB drive from Casey was in my other pocket, a small weight that felt impossibly heavy. Once we're in position, I'll text the FBI contact, Alex said. They have agents standing by, but they need at least 15 minutes to mobilize. I'll give them 20, I replied, not looking at him. No more. The elevator doors opened to a dimly lit hallway. Zariah motioned us to follow, leading us not toward the conference room, but to a small security office nearby. I need 5 minutes, she said, sliding into the chair at the monitoring station. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, bypassing security protocols with practiced ease. There, I've looped the camera feeds in the hallway and disabled the conference room recording system. As far as security is concerned, nothing unusual is happening tonight. On the monitors, I could see the conference room. Carlos was already there, along with 2 men I recognized from board photos. They were talking, faces animated but audio muted. Where's Casey? I asked, scanning the screens. Not there, Zariah confirmed, frowning. That's not good. Change of plans, I said, making a quick decision. I'm going in alone. Alex, stay here with Zariah. If I'm not out in 20 minutes, call in the FBI regardless. Daisy, no, Alex protested. It's too dangerous. This is my fight, I said firmly. Has been from the beginning. Besides, Carlos is expecting me alone. Anything else will tip him off. Before either could argue further, I slipped out of the security office and made my way down the hall. Each step felt deliberate, my heartbeat steady despite the danger. For the first time in weeks, my mind was perfectly clear. I paused outside the conference room door, took a deep breath, and entered without knocking. The conversation inside cut off abruptly. Carlos looked up, surprise flickering across his face, before settling into a practiced smile. Daisy. Right on time. He gestured to an empty chair. Please join us. I remained standing. Where's Casey? Ms. Fernandez is indisposed. The older man to Carlos's right spoke, his voice carrying the weight of authority. I'm Harold, by the way. We haven't formally met. The third man didn't introduce himself, just watched me with cold, assessing eyes. I asked where Casey is, I repeated, moving further into the room, but not taking a seat. Carlos's smile tightened. She's being dealt with appropriately, given her betrayal of the company. But that's not why we're here. He slid a folder across the table. We need your preliminary audit findings. Tonight. I let my gaze move deliberately around the room, taking in details, the positions of the men, the exits, the laptop open on the table. Building time, building tension. Interesting that you're so eager for my findings, I said finally, especially since I've discovered some irregularities that trace back to this room. The temperature seemed to drop several degrees. Careful, Daisy, Carlos warned. You're making serious implications. Not implications, evidence. I pulled out my phone, making a show of accessing files. Financial records, offshore accounts, real estate transactions through shell companies, all leading back to you, Carlos. And you, Harold. And your silent partner here. Harold's face flushed with anger. You have no idea what you're talking about, don't I? I turned the phone toward them, showing a document from Casey's files. A bank statement with Harold's signature, authorizing a transfer to an account in the Caymans. This is just the beginning. I have everything. Carlos stood slowly, his friendly facade evaporating. Where did you get that? Casey wasn't as easy to silence as you thought, I said, backing toward the door. She's been documenting your operation for months. Give me the phone, Daisy. Carlos's voice was soft, dangerous. Now. Or what? You'll arrange another car accident, like you did for Casey? I kept my voice steady, despite the fear crawling up my spine. It's too late. The evidence has already been sent to the FBI. The silent man finally spoke. She's bluffing. Am I? I pulled out the USB drive. This contains everything, every transaction, every email, every conversation, including the one where you discussed eliminating me as a loose end. Carlos lunged suddenly, faster than I expected. His hand closed around my wrist, twisting until I gasped in pain. Give it to me, he hissed. Let her go, Carlos. Casey's voice came from the doorway. She stood there, bruised but upright, with Zariah and Alex flanking her like guards. Carlos's grip tightened. How did you... Get away? Casey stepped into the room. You should hire better men, or at least men who can't be bought for the right price. This is a mistake, Harold said, rising from his chair. Whatever you think you're doing... Exposing you, I finished for him, wrenching my arm free from Carlos's grasp. All of you. You have nothing, the third man said dismissively. No proof that would stand up in court. Actually, Alex said, holding up his phone, we have your entire conversation from the last 5 minutes, including your assault on my wife. The FBI is already in the building. It's over. Carlos's face contorted with rage. He reached inside his jacket for a weapon, I realized with sudden clarity, but before he could draw it, Casey moved. She slammed into him with surprising force, driving him back against the conference table. They struggled briefly before Carlos shoved her away violently. She stumbled backward, colliding with a chair. You ungrateful bitch, he snarled. After everything I did for you. After everything you took from me, Casey corrected, straightening. My reputation, my integrity, my best friend. Her eyes met mine briefly. Some things can't be replaced. The sound of multiple footsteps in the hallway silenced whatever Carlos might have said next. The door burst open as FBI agents flooded the room, weapons drawn, shouting commands. In the chaos that followed, Carlos and the others being cuffed and read their rights, agents securing the room. Casey made her way to my side. I'm sorry, she said quietly. For everything. I looked at her, really looked at her, seeing both the friend I'd loved and the woman who had betrayed me. The anger was still there, but something else too. Something like understanding. I know, I said finally. As the agents led Carlos past us, he stopped, his eyes burning with hatred. This isn't over, either of you. I stepped forward, meeting his gaze without flinching. Yes, Carlos, it is. And in that moment, watching him being led away in handcuffs, I finally felt the weight I'd been carrying begin to lift. Dawn broke over the city as I sat in the FBI field office, my 5th cup of coffee growing cold between my hands. The adrenaline had long since faded, leaving me hollow and exhausted. Around me, agents moved with practiced efficiency, processing evidence and taking statements. Just a few more questions, Mrs. Cooper, the agent across from me said. Hamilton, I corrected automatically. I'm going back to my maiden name. He nodded, making a note. Of course, Ms. Hamilton. Can you walk me through how you first discovered the discrepancies in Meridian's accounts? I began the explanation again, my financial training making it easy to articulate the complex fraud scheme. As I spoke, I watched Alex through the glass partition of another interview room. He was leaning forward, earnest and engaged as he always was when closing a deal. I wondered if he'd use that same expression when he first approached Casey, when he first betrayed me. That should be sufficient, the agent said finally, closing his notebook. We'll need you to sign a formal statement later today, but you're free to go for now. In the lobby, Zariah waited, looking remarkably composed despite the night we'd had. They're releasing Casey too, she said as I approached. Immunity deal in exchange for her full cooperation. Good, I said, and meant it, surprising myself. The elevator doors opened, and Casey stepped out, flanked by another agent. She hesitated when she saw me, uncertainty flashing across her face. I'll give you 2 a minute, Zariah said, stepping away discreetly. Casey approached slowly, as if expecting me to turn away. They told me you corroborated my statement, confirmed I was being coerced. You didn't have to do that. I told the truth, I said simply. Carlos was threatening you. That doesn't excuse everything, but it's a factor. She nodded, eyes downcast. I never thought it would go this far. When I found out what they were doing, I just wanted evidence to protect myself. Then Alex got involved, and everything became so complicated. Why didn't you come to me? The question that had been burning inside me for weeks finally emerged. Before any of this happened, before Alex, Casey's laugh was bitter. Because you were the one person I couldn't bear to disappoint. You always saw the best in me, even when I didn't deserve it. She met my eyes directly. I was a coward, Daisy, and I lost the best thing in my life because of it. The words hung between us, heavy with 15 years of history. Road trips and late-night confidences, shared apartments and shared dreams, and now, shared betrayal. I can't forgive you, I said finally. Not yet. Maybe not ever for Alex, but I understand how Carlos operated, how he found people's weaknesses and exploited them. My weakness was always wanting more than I had, Casey admitted. More success, more recognition, more of what you had. And now? Now I just want to make things right, however I can. Before I could respond, Alex emerged from his interview room, spotting us immediately. His face registered surprise, then caution as he approached. They're letting me go for now, he said, stopping a respectful distance away. Full immunity in exchange for testimony. Congratulations, I said flatly. You get away with it. Again. He flinched. I deserve that. I deserve worse. Yes, you do. I turned to face him fully. You know what I keep thinking about? Not the affair, not even the fraud. I keep thinking about our vows, for better or worse. You chose worse, Alex. Deliberately. Repeatedly. I know, he said quietly. I destroyed everything good in my life because I was too weak to make the right choice. I don't expect forgiveness, Daisy, but I am sorry, more than I can ever express. Looking at him, this man I had loved, had built a life with, I felt a strange sense of clarity. The anger was still there, but it no longer consumed me. I believe you're sorry, I said, but that doesn't change anything. Casey shifted uncomfortably. I should go, my lawyer's waiting. She hesitated, then added, For what it's worth, Daisy, you were always the strongest of us. I just never understood how much until now. After she left, Alex and I stood in awkward silence. What will you do now? He finally asked. The question caught me off guard. I hadn't thought beyond survival, beyond justice. I don't know, I admitted. Start over, I guess. Somewhere new. The FBI mentioned you might be offered a position with their financial crimes division, Alex said. Your expertise was impressive. I raised an eyebrow. Tracking criminals instead of being used by them. There's a thought. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. You'd be good at it. I would, I agreed, surprising myself with the certainty I felt. The main doors opened, and sunlight streamed into the lobby, bright and uncompromising. Outside lay a world fundamentally changed from the one I'd known a week ago. My marriage was over. My closest friendship shattered. My career in transition. And yet, standing there in that moment of reckoning, I felt something unexpected. Possibility. I should go, I said, gathering my things. There's a lot to figure out. Alex nodded, not trying to stop me. For what it's worth, Daisy, you deserved better. From both of us. I know, I said, and the knowledge felt like power. That's why I'm going to make sure I get it. I walked out into the morning light alone, but not broken. The betrayal that had defined my recent past would not dictate my future. That belonged to me now. Every choice, every consequence, every new beginning. As I hailed a taxi, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Position available if you want it. We could use someone who knows how to follow the money. Agent Reeves. I smiled, tucking the phone away. Tomorrow would bring decisions, but today was for reclaiming what was mine. Not the life I had lost, but the woman I had found in its ruins. Stronger than before, wiser than before, and finally, irrevocably, free.